All right, you're back here on the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. Man, I am super pumped. It's season 7. I cannot believe we started this back in right before COVID. We started this in January of 2020 as a way to uplift and honor coaches around the country. And certainly I had a vision, but I could not envision what it has become. I'm so grateful for the men and women who listen to this podcast, numbered in the hundreds of thousands. I'm just so blessed. And really, it's not about me. It's not about Gill. It's honestly about the men and women that we have on the show here, the men and women who choose to be track and field coaches. And I'm pumped to bring you this one. There's a lot of great things going on at maybe a place you maybe not be aware of. It is one of the smaller, it is the smallest state, actually. But there's a lot of big things going on for track and field. So let's get into it. Help me welcome the men's head coach there at University of Rhode Island, the Rams, baby. I got to find out if there's actually Rams in Rhode Island. Well, that'll be the first question I ask him. Help me welcome the wise, the wonderful Mr. Trent Baltzell. Trent, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, Mike.
How did I nail that last name?
That was great.
I was really like, it's a good name when you really get it, Baltzell. Like I like that. It's kind of a show business name, man. I like that.
Yeah, it's not a name that's easy to pair with first names though. So
Mm.
we've had my wife and I have had 4 sons, and it's been a bit of a struggle.
Do you mind? You get to you're the rule maker here. So if you don't want to talk about your kids and family, that's all good with me. But since you said that, I'm curious what their names are. Are you comfortable sharing that with us?
Oh boy.
You could say no, and
Yeah,
I'll move on, bro.
a lot stranger than my name.
I like unique names. You said strange, unique names. There's enough
Yeah,
Mikes and
yeah.
Daves and Steves in this world, brother. So I like Trent's a fairly unique name. I don't know many Trents, so you got some unique names there, huh?
Yeah, we do. Our first son is his name is Atlas. He's coming up on 7 years old, which
Atlas. How, how,
yeah, that
how? That's a cool name.
my wife is kind of into like Greek mythology and just
Yeah.
mythology. Yeah, it's we kind of started down that route, and then we kept hold with it.
Tell me one of your kids' name is like Hercules.
No, we thought of more like gods, titans, but yeah, we ended up going with Zephyr for our second son, and then we had twins, Cosmo and Solaris, so more of like the interstellar stuff.
You got
Yeah.
a son named Cosmo.
Yeah.
Bro, that's so cool, man. I'm from the bottom of my heart. I really do like that. Like I said, I was in a meeting yesterday with 4 or 5 of my team, and funny is I don't know why I thought about it, but I looked around. I was like, I had a Tim, an Adam, a Nick, a Dave, and a Mike, and I was like, we are 90% of all the names in this country, at least not the world, but this country. How boring are we? So when I see a Trent, Cosmo, Zephyr, bro. Those are big
Yeah,
names, dude.
I think that I'm the only Trent Baltzell in the whole world. There are other Baltzells,
You know, there's
and
a website for that, right?
I looked it up. This is probably 10 years ago, the last
Yeah,
time
yeah,
I
yeah.
looked into this, but I have to guess that none of my 4 sons have matching names across
Oh,
them.
yeah. No, they're one of ones.
Yeah, I would
Absolutely,
say so.
absolutely. Yeah,
Except the
Mike's.
twins, they're one of two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's super cool. I love that you and your wife did that. Honestly, you could have been Mike, Adam, Dave, Tim, and been like everybody else. I think that's cool, man.
well, she was
Uh,
an art major, so her
oh,
mind goes in different directions.
got it.
Hmm.
Yeah. We need those people, even though, they're on the fringe, but we need those
Yeah, we
people. That's
do.
cool. I love
Yeah.
that. Well, I said my first question was going to be, are there Rams in the state of Rhode Island? Why are you the Rams? Do you know about that?
I don't know too much about the history, but yeah, there are. I mean, a lot of schools are called the Rams all across the country. We have like just down the road, like a 5 square mile, which takes up a big portion of the state, as you can imagine. It's called the Preserve, and they've got like a golf course out there, and it's like a big hunting place in southern Rhode Island, and they have like this pen of rams like right out front, and you can stop and see them and feed them and stuff like that. But those are the only actual rams I've ever seen in the state.
I like when you said 5 square miles. Literally, my head was like, wait, is that like the whole state? Like, what do you mean?
I actually live like on the outskirts of their property. And the other day, actually, where I was walking down the road with my boys, and there was just a quail in the middle of the road, just like a dead quail, and I was like, oh,
Oh,
interesting. So it's a hunting place. It's like a hunting preserve.
oh, got it, got
Rich
it, got it.
guys from New York will come down, and and buy their $2 million condos and just hang out for a weekend every once in a while.
Man, that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
that's amazing. What a life, I guess, huh? You'd mentioned before we hit record, you're a golfer, so that must be the golf course.
Yeah, I will never play on those golf courses. That's
Oh,
for sure.
it's
Oh, they uppity courses. Yeah. We
okay,
have a
okay.
good mix in our area. We got some good public courses that
Yeah.
are real close to home for me. So at some point, my boys and I will probably get a family membership, but it's going to be a few years. They're all still really young.
Yeah. Got it. Love it. Love it. Well, man, let's learn more about you. That's fascinating, dude. I do. I will be thinking about your kids' names because it's a weird quirk of mine that I love unique name. We just had a new guy in our customer service team, and his name is Dio, and I think it's Deo, and I'm just like fascinated with that dude. I'm like, Dio. Like, who the hell names their kid Dio? I love that. That's so cool, man.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is cool.
And he's not
Yeah.
American, so he didn't name it after like what is it, Ronnie James Dio or whatever. He's from the
Okay.
Congo originally, so I'm
Yeah.
like it's obviously a more of a Congolese type name. But I'm just fascinated with this dude. Like I just want to learn more just because your name's Dio and not Nick.
Yeah, maybe your background is as interesting as your name is, right?
Exactly. All right. I'm gonna find out like his parents were accountants or like something, just
Probably.
boring. Yeah, exactly. All right, Trent, let's hop in our Wayback Machine and learn more about you, my friend. Assuming, and actually I do know this is an assumption, but assuming that you were a track and field athlete, where in the world does track start for you?
Back in fifth grade. So that was, yeah, my parents, my mom was from the Midwest. They didn't do much for sports for women at the time. So
Hmm.
she was doing cheerleading and field hockey. That was about it. But I think she's pretty athletic. Like she could have done a lot. My dad grew up playing like tennis and golf and in the Midwest and in Texas and different places. So they met up here and got us into sports when we were young. My sister is a couple years older than I am, and my brother's a couple years younger than I am. So we all played soccer. We all played, basketball and baseball and things like that. And then my older sister, who is 2 years older than me, she got cut from like the sixth grade soccer team. So she started just running cross country. And she was really good, like right off the bat, like really
Oh
good
wow.
as a kid. And so fast forward a couple years, at least one year, she's in seventh grade. I'm getting out of elementary school that fall in fifth grade, and I just walk over to the cross country practice because that's where she's hanging out. And I went to Sutton High School in Massachusetts, tiny school. The middle school, the elementary school, the high school are all like literally in the same place.
Oh wow.
So I just happened to be around, watching her races the year before, and then I would go and just run around with like the older kids as I thought of them at the time.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I first got into like racing as a fifth grader. Like they just let me take part, in the races and the practices. So that was my introduction.
Was it so you come from kind of a varied background, either soccer from your sister, your dad played some different sports, things like that. When you started, kind of catching wind of this cross country track and field thing, was it an immediate like when you think about fifth grade, sixth grade, was it an immediate like oh because spoiler alert, this becomes your life. You're a track coach now, right? But was it something that was an immediate like they say love at first sight, like oh my God, where has this sport been my whole life? Or very rightfully so. Your freaking fifth grade, sixth grade was like, oh, that's cool. This is fun, but I still want to try it for the baseball team or soccer team or whatever.
Probably somewhere in the middle, I would
Hmm.
say. And that might have been when I first found out that I was kind of a glutton for pain.
Oh,
So I would go out on runs and then do workouts, and especially the races, like they hurt a lot. I don't know if you've ever run cross country before or distance races, but yeah, they can get pretty painful. And I don't know what about it drew me in, but like I just felt good after doing like a hard effort,
hmm.
even as like a young kid like that. So um, but I still at the same time was thinking, hey, I'm gonna play soccer. Like when I actually get into middle school and I can be on the team, I'm gonna play soccer. I'm gonna, play basketball in the winter time. I'm gonna play baseball in the
Right.
springtime, and that's gonna be like my career.
Yeah, rightfully so, by the way. Absolutely. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And if there was one sport that I was gonna give up, it was soccer because I had just been playing it like at higher levels for so long, I was kind of getting a little bored of it.
Hmm.
So maybe my thought was, hey, I'll run cross country, and then I'll use that for fitness for the other sports, just like so many other people
I
have
was
done.
gonna say, I've done this 300 times. That is, there are certainly uniquenesses through all 300 different coaches I've had. That is a more of a common theme of like, oh yeah, I started running cross country to stay in shape for basketball or soccer or whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you talking about, did I run cross country in the pain? So I was such a terrible athlete, not only talent wise, but like whenever it did start to hurt, Trent, I would just start walking. So it's hard for me to say cross country has pain. When you do it right, possibly, but yeah, I didn't do it right at all. So you get into high school, what sport and or sports did you end up doing?
Yeah, I mean it was like in middle school when I decided, okay, officially I'm going to run cross country. And then I just started, I think at the time I was still playing like basketball. So I played basketball in seventh and eighth grade for like the June, the JV team. Our school was so literally so small that they needed middle school players
Right.
to field like JV and varsity teams.
Right.
So I was like earning letters. I don't know if that's still a thing anymore, but I was earning
Yeah,
letters in those sports
that's
in
true.
middle school.
That's
Yeah,
a good
because of
point. That was a big thing when I was in high school. It feels like that still has to be a thing.
I am not honestly, I'm not sure because even
Yeah.
at our level in college, like I received letters back in 2014 when I was graduating, like,
Right.
but they don't do that anymore at URI.
Huh. That's
Yeah,
interesting. So it's interesting how culture changes because I remember that being like that's how I got into track. 'Cause I was like, oh, I won't get into the whole story, but it was like indoor track for us in Alabama, and I was like, oh, that's got to be easy. I'll get a letter. Like I remember that being a very specific thing. Like I will get my first letter. So that's
right,
interesting.
right.
Yeah, small school. I get that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're playing all the sports because they need you for every sport.
Yeah, yeah.
Was it so small? Did you have a football team?
We did not. We
Yeah.
anyone who wanted to play football could play at the neighboring town. But
Oh,
it was still
you
like
are
nine,
small.
yeah, 90% their town and only like a few
Yeah.
guys from our town.
Wow.
So.
How many kids did you graduate with?
95. It wasn't like the tiniest,
I
but it
said
was
that's not.
still pretty small.
Yeah, yeah. So I was 125, and we were one of the largest schools in the state. There were 6A where I was back then, but we were 5A. So that's not. I've certainly met people who were graduated with a class of 10. So that's not terribly tiny.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true,
but it's
true.
small. It's small.
Yeah, yeah. So by the time I was a freshman, like my plan was to play basketball in the winter time. And then I go to like 3 days of the tryouts and I was like, and they were expecting me to play because I've been playing with this group of guys. And I'm still friends with this whole group
Oh, that's
from
good.
the guys I grew up with. And so they're all trying to convince me to stick around, but I'm like, you know what? I just want to go and do track. And that I had already been, it wasn't just distance running. Like I had already been doing a lot of the field events like high jump and the throws and things. And so I was just after cross country season, like I just needed more of it at the time. And I was just like, you know what? Maybe I'll come back next year for basketball, but like I need to do this now. And I
Right.
just never went back.
So it sounds like you started throwing yourself into track and field. Did you throw yourself into track and field off the track? And what I mean by that is, um, were you trying to find track and field news wherever you went to a store or the magazine rack? Did you anytime track was on TV, were you glued to it, or was it strictly just the physical side of it?
I would say mostly physical side. I don't think we just didn't have as much um uh you know from a TV perspective, like I guess if it was, the Olympic trials or the Olympics or something, like of course like I would try to watch, but there was no social media and you just couldn't get as much of it like outside of like your situation.
Right. What
So
uh what what year did you graduate high school?
I graduated in '09.
Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah.
you're so young. Oh, nine. Jeez. I interviewed someone the other day. They graduated in '06, and I was like, or no, 16. And I was like, bro, I was 10 years in my Gill career when you graduated high school. Like, that's just crazy. '09, I'm 3 years in.
Yeah.
You guys keep getting younger. I keep getting older. That's the issue.
Well, that's
Uh,
good. We'll try to keep you young.
yeah, I needed as
Yeah.
I need as much help as possible. That's for sure. Okay, so what did you started with a distance background, but you started playing with some other field events. Did you become more of a distance guy, or you kind of a cross country guy throughout the high school career?
Uh, maybe one of my biggest regrets as an athlete was sticking with cross country for so long. So I went fifth grade. So my very first race ever was 9/11. Was that actual day?
Oh, shut up.
Yeah. So I mean, it was big news by the time school got out. I don't think anyone really had talked about it too much during school,
Did
but
you
by the
you
time school got out,
you didn't win that meet, did you?
I was a fifth grader racing eighth grader, so
Okay. Because
but that was like the first time I went like super super deep like ever, and I will never forget the feeling. I don't know if I've ever gone as deep as I did that day, to be honest.
what I was thinking is like, because this happened, like the person who won that race, like, if it was their first race, what a big deal. And it got completely thrown to the side because of 9/11. They're like, oh,
Yeah,
I should have been a hero that day. And this unbelievable travesty, like no one remembers. I could just, like
right,
that just
right.
sucks, bro. People's birthdays are that day. And it's like, well, I really can't celebrate.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's an easy way for me to remember like when
For sure.
when I first
Yeah.
got into track, like my
Absolutely.
initiation.
Yeah, 100%. What a crazy marker for that day. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
so you regretted running cross country for so long is what you said.
Yeah, so by the time I was a senior, I was probably I think I had grown to be about 6'5" by then, which is what my current height is. So I was
You're
6'5" and
6'5"?
yeah, and I'm like 180 pounds. So I mean I love running distance. I still love it. Like I still go like I'll go out for an hour potentially sometimes and I weigh 220 pounds now, but even at the time at 180, I was just so much bigger than everybody else. And it's just hard to, the more I've gotten into to training and the physiology of all these things, it's like you're at such a disadvantage when when you're that big relative to your competitors. So I was important to our team. We were a small school and we had the ability to win some meets, some like local championships, like league and district stuff. And so I was one of our better runners. And had I not been, on the team and hanging in there, like we wouldn't have been able to have as much success. So, and I loved it. So like there was really no reason at the time that I felt for me not to do it, you know?
Now, this is extremely stereotypical for tall people here, but I mean, how did you not play basketball all four?
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking, 6'5", small school,
Yeah.
a big school. Yeah, 6'5" guy is, probably a higher propensity to be on the basketball team than not. I mean, that had to be like, I mean, the basketball coach had to be like, what the, like, you had to be one of the taller kids.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I was probably the only guy on our in our school, maybe one of two or three who could like dunk a basketball, you know?
Yeah,
And
right.
so yeah, they were real upset because I've been playing basketball since I was 8 years old or something like that. And I'd come up with
Right.
all these guys and I even continued playing AAU like after, during the summertime. So
Dude,
and then it would come and it would be like November and it would be basketball tryouts and I would do a couple days and I'd be like, you know what, I'm just not feeling this. I'm going back to track.
that's that's interesting because like I'm putting myself in the shoes of like a teammate or a potential teammate, and I'm like, dude, you play in the summer. WTF? We need you in December and January. Like what in there? But I love this other. So putting myself in your shoes of like, you got to be true to who you are, and when December and January and February are here, I like track. I
Yeah.
wish maybe if high school basketball season was in the summer, that might have worked out. But man, you stayed true to yourself. There's something to be said about that.
Yeah, and on top of that, so I was in like the concert band at our school. I
Hmm.
played the trumpet, and we also did some other stuff. We had like jazz band and we had pep
Hmm.
band.
Hmm.
And so when I was younger, especially my freshman year, like when I had decided, to forego basketball and continue with track and running, I played in the pep band. So I would be at the basketball games and they would see me out there and I was first eventually ended up becoming first chair trumpet. And so I was literally in the pep band and the band director was pissed at me too because he's like, dude, you should be playing basketball. Like, why are you on this side of the sideline? So yeah,
You
they
know,
saw me at every game.
opposing teams had to go there and be like, wait a minute, the dudes in the band are 6'5". How big are the guys in the court
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
be?
And the team was still good. They still, they were
Yeah.
still able to be successful without me.
Oh
But
man. That's so
yeah,
funny. So so on you're talking about cross country on the track, were you a miler, 2 miler, or what did you?
man, I mixed it up. Like I would actually run the 2 mile and then 20 minutes later have to go in high jump. Like, yeah,
Wow, you're one of those.
yeah,
That's a rare bird there. I mean, you're
yeah,
6'5" though, so it's kind of like that was the next stereotypical tall guy thing is like, oh, well, you must have high jump, which is again very ludicrous because it's not like all high jumpers are 6'5" necessarily. There's plenty of 6'6" that are 7 footer, that jump 7 foot
yeah,
plus. So,
yeah.
so it's not really the same stereotype, but it's all tall people automatically you high jump, with that. So you're doing kind of all over the place.
I was all over the place. Yeah, I had even done my first decathlon as a seventh grader.
Really? How so?
So again, you kind of get to the end of the season. Well, this is maybe Massachusetts alone. I think Vermont does one too. A couple other states up here, where at the end of the year they just bring everyone together. Whoever wants to
Yeah.
do it. It's like a
Yeah.
after the state meet. It's like a Tuesday, Wednesday
Yep.
uh, decathlon, and I think the heptathlon might have been like the Thursday, Friday or something.
Yep.
And so anyone in central Massachusetts who wanted to do that would come together on one day and do it. And there would be like 150 kids.
Yeah.
Oftentimes middle schoolers were taking part. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
I
did.
last year, this is 2020, when you're listening to this, it's 2026. When I'm recording this, it's 2025. And I think it was, boy, after 7 years, you start forgetting some things. It was either earlier in 2025 or earlier in 2024. I think it was 2024. Anyway, I interviewed a high school coach from every state, so all 50 plus one plus DC, about their outdoor state meet. How do you qualify? What events and things like that. It was fascinating. I highly encourage if you're listening, or even you, Trent. It really was fascinating to go into all 50 states. What fascinated me was how many states do a multi typically after the state meet. There are a couple, if I remember correctly, there was at least one, Pennsylvania, maybe, that has a heptathlon. I'm sorry, what would be the five?
Pentathlon.
Pentathlon for their outdoor state meet for boys and girls. But there was a state, and you're describing the state, I'm sure. I think it was Vermont. They do, in fact, they claim to be the oldest high school decathlon in the country. They got upwards of 100, 150, 200 kids. I remember this. And what was interesting is, first of all, that many kids would do a decathlon after. But what's super interesting to me is both boys and girls do the decathlon. They
Hmm.
didn't do a decathlon boys heptathlon. And I was like, wait a minute, you got this, sorry, not sorry, small state up in the Northeast, and 100 girls go and do the decathlon, but we can't get the decathlon for World Athletics and NCAA. Like, whoa, there's a lot of excuses that just aren't flying anymore if these guys up here could figure it out. So that's cool. You were part of that. That's really neat.
Yeah, yeah, and you're spot on with Vermont. They definitely have the girls doing the decathlon. I
Yeah,
think it's almost like an open thing too up there. So like you don't even necessarily have to be a high schooler or a middle schooler. You can
correct.
compete in it. Yeah.
Because who was it? I'm getting some states mixed up. There was somebody, and maybe it was up there, that did a a multi or a state meet for people who didn't even do track because it was like, oh, there's baseball players that would love to do track, but it's baseball season. So after the track season,
Mm.
we invite everybody. Like there's no hey, in the 100 minimum mark is 11:30 or what. Like it was just like, man, you played baseball, cool, come run the 100, come do the decathlon or whatever. I just think those opportunities, especially in high school, are so important because you still don't know. Even as a senior, you're 18 years old, but you're still years away from like who you are, like physically and mentally and
Sure, yeah.
socially. So I love it really when I did that 50 state thing, man. It just some states are really giving kids multiple chances to be good at something and to experience things, whether it's javelin, multis, etc. And I remember just being super impressed up in the Northeast because it seemed like the culture of multis was more frequent up in the Northeast than the rest of our country. There were some other great pockets. Alabama, my state, Alabama, we have done a unofficial state meet for decathlon and heptathlon after the outdoor state meet for decades. Bo Jackson was a state champion
Mm.
decathlete, so we've been doing it
Mm.
forever. But it seemed like a higher percentage of states up in the Northeast, and that was pretty cool, man. I love that. I love that you had that opportunity.
Yeah, I think probably some, especially for Vermont, like the kids literally have to do all these events because otherwise they couldn't even have like a track meet. Like there's
Good point.
so many less people around, so that like specialization doesn't happen as much.
That's a
I
good
mean, we
point.
have guys on our team. It's Vermont is my sister lives in Vermont and I live in Southern Rhode Island, and it's she's like 2.5 hours away. It's not that far.
Hmm.
So we have guys on the team from Vermont, and that's pretty typical for us.
Yeah.
But you said earlier that there are state pentathlons like scored,
Hmm.
at the state meet. So Massachusetts has that now. They didn't when I was in high school, but they have that now, and New York has had that for a while too. I don't know
Right.
about Pennsylvania, but definitely those states.
It might have been Massachusetts that I was thinking. Again, 2 years ago in 50 different states, but the reason I remember it was whichever state it was, whether it's Pennsylvania or Massachusetts, they have a like all states have a limit on the number of events that you can do as an athlete,
Yes.
and this state was. I- I'm sure I'm going to muck this up a lot here. It was like three running events, and it was actually four events or something like that. So it was like three. It couldn't be more than it couldn't be all four in running or all four in field. It had to be 3-1 or 2-2 or something like that, right?
Hmm.
But and they were real strict on it, which it's a rule. So I don't know. I should have said it's real strict. It's a rule. But the pentathlon counted as one event. So you could. So the person I was recruiting, or I'm sorry, interviewing, was talking about he had a girl who did three air quotes here normal events, single events, but did the pentathlon. So she actually did nine different races or
Right.
events and like that. But she could not have done a fifth. Like she was really good in the high jump or something like that. She could not have just entered the high jump because that would have been her fifth, and that wasn't that was illegal. And it's like, but you can do the pentathlon and do five. Like it
Right.
just common sense wise, it seems like it doesn't match up, but
Yeah,
it
yeah.
also kind of does, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they do the pentathlon and maybe like the pole vault competition on like a Thursday, and then the rest of the meet is on a Saturday.
That's
So
right. Yep.
yeah,
I that must have been Massachusetts then, because yeah, you
it
since you
sounds
know it
right.
real well, I bet that was the state I'm thinking about.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm just fascinated. Um, I love giving kids opportunities, and for American track and field, overall, we certainly have had some successes and are having successes now. We're behind in the javelin, the hammer, and the multis. Again, we've certainly had our successes in those events, but I just think about like, dude, if we had there's a million kids that get to do the 100 and 200 and 4x1. If we had a million kids that got to do the javelin or the hammer, like we'd be way better. Like just throw the numbers.
yeah,
That's why Texas is so good beyond good weather and track coaches, but they have a billion people. So just from the numbers, they're gonna rule a Rhode Island on a dual meet, right? Because they just have so many more kids running at it. We need that for our javelins, multis, and hammer and steeples. That's why I love New York having that steeplechase
true. Yeah,
there as
steeple.
well.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Now we're pretty lucky to have like the hammer throw in Rhode Island for
Hmm.
like the state because it's one of few. I think it might be like 10 states now that do it, but
Nope. Nope, I
but
remember this as well. Good point.
yeah,
Uh, Thank you for reminding me. Rhode Island is the hammer state. So there are a couple of states that have it unofficially. Ohio used to, and then Ohio, whatever it is, banned it. They said, no, you can't do that, guys. Even unofficially, you can't do it. Washington has a really good culture. So they have kind of an unofficial state meet. California has a good culture. So they have an official California state meet. But as far as actually state meet, like sanction, you're it, buddy. Rhode Island. It's the only one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we've had some unbelievable hammer throwers out of
Oh
the state,
yeah.
even currently right now. Like some of these high school kids have, near national record levels and
Yeah.
go on to become Division I All-Americans and national champions.
It,
And
until some of these other guys like a Mike Judge and Joe Frontier and what's my guy at Notre Dame High School out in California, until some of these guys started teaching high schoolers more about the hammer, Rhode Island probably, not counting international students, probably fed 70+% of all college hammer throwers coming out of high
yeah,
school,
probably.
freshmen. I mean, it was everybody
Yeah.
like, you want a hammer thrower? Better go to, what was it, like uh, uh, Warwick High School. I remember that being a big one, Bishop
Woonsocket's a big
something.
one right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Henderson, Bishop
Yeah.
Henderson, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So you had this like, the state this big, but it was this big for hammer.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love that. I'm so glad I did it was a lot of work, but to do the 50 states, It was absolutely fascinating. So anytime I get to bring up that subject, man, it just it's a warm feeling. I really love that. So I appreciate you letting me interrupt your story to talk more about that. Okay,
You got it.
so you're a guy who is running the 2 mile. 20 minutes later, you're trying to figure out how do you get your 2 mile legs to go with a high jump bar. That makes me feel like they say if you're going to be a basketball player, you got to be a gym rat. Like you got to always be in the gym shooting things like that, right? To be a multi-athlete, and I don't know if you actually go to the decathlon, we'll find that out here, but you're multi-event athlete, you're doing 2 mile high jump, etc. It seems like you got to be a gym rat there. So you got to always be at the track, always talking to coach, things like that. What was your relationship with coach or coaches in high school?
Yeah, my coach was his name is Bill Gillen. He recently retired as a high school coach and social worker. So like even the school kids knew him, like for people that were working with him as as his profession. But as a coach, he was a distance guy. Like he was the up until this past year, he held the UMass Amherst steeplechase record.
Wow.
It was finally broken in 2025.
Wow.
And so he was an All-American. He used to run against Pre and those guys like at
Always
cross country championships. And
big time guy. Okay.
yeah, no, he was real good. He was so modest. It was crazy. Like you could barely like you couldn't get him to talk about his career, to be honest. He was just like the nicest man. But he was distance minded, and he just kind of let the team do whatever they wanted outside of distance. You know, the captains ran the show. Really didn't have like assistant coaches that were there beyond just being babysitters.
Yeah.
So the captains would and the older guys would teach the younger guys. So whether good or bad, they were
Yeah.
taught this and that. So yeah, I just came up and learned from like the high schoolers when I was in middle school, and then eventually that became my role. As a junior senior, I would help out with the younger guys, and that's how we did it.
That's not uncommon. Luckily, it's not, I don't believe, from talking to, quote unquote, every coach in the country. I don't think it's the majority, but it's not uncommon that experience that you had there. Did you, I mean, you said you graduated in '09, so well, actually, it's crazy. I just read this article about YouTube. I don't think I really realized. I mean, I know YouTube wasn't around forever. Certainly wasn't around when I was in high school. But like when I was just about to ask you, in '09, like, oh, well, what were you doing, '06, '07, '08, '09? You're in this role of like a coach player type, if you will, is what I'm kind of hearing. Were you watching YouTube videos on how to coach high jump? But YouTube started in 2006. So you
Yeah,
really didn't kind of have YouTube. You might
not
not even
too
have heard
much.
about YouTube. So what were you doing? If anything, you're a 17, 18-year-old kid, a lot of grace. Were you trying to go to the library to check out but like what were you doing like you didn't have coach telling you what to do in the high jump or long jump or whatever. You kind of had to make it up or figure it out. How did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you're probably learning more from like the higher level athletes in the state, I would say.
Oh,
Like you'd go to invitationals and you just chat with other kids, and
yeah,
not so much from like a training perspective, but at least from like a technique perspective. Like you would
right.
just kind of pick things up. Yeah, you're right. YouTube wasn't around too much. I don't remember ever really looking into like library or books and anything like
Yeah,
that. It
yeah, yeah.
was uh yeah, I was just more from like learn from sight and word
Yeah.
of mouth and whatnot.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. You go to a meet and you see, a 23-foot long jump, and you're like, oh, did you see that? What was that drill he just did? All right, well, guess what we're doing on Monday? We're gonna try to figure
Yeah,
this thing out.
exactly.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's actually what was happening
yeah.
for
That
sure.
makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh, are you at this time? So we're in senior year. Where is coaching, becoming a coach at all? Is it at all in your headspace or not at all?
Um, Maybe like indirectly, like it wasn't like a conscious thought maybe, but I mean I enjoyed working with the other athletes like
Okay.
on my team, so um and I was also like keeping statistics at the time, so like I was kind of like doing some office work for the coach. But yeah, I wouldn't say that like my plan was ever to become like a, a full-time coach or
Yeah,
anything like
you're not thinking like, hey, I'm going to go become a track coach. I'm going to go, like, I'm purposely going to go study education so I can do this or kinesiology
Yeah.
because I'm going to do this. Yeah. So what was it as you're looking at senior year and you're looking at schools and colleges and things like that? So where'd you end up going? And B, what were you thinking? Were you going to become a firefighter, an astronaut? Those are all the things I wanted to be when I was a kid. But what were you thinking as an 18-year-old?
And not much outside of track. I was really absorbed. Even so that would have been 6 years in competing like
Mm-hmm.
cross country, indoor and outdoor, like consistently, basically for 6 straight years. I was like in love with track. So that was like that was like my priority, like in the recruiting process, which I I guess I was a bit lazy with the whole thing. I knew I was going to do track somewhere, like, and I just and I so I just kind of looked into a few programs that caught my eye, mostly local programs. Like, of course, I had jumped 6'9" in the high jump, well, maybe six. I think I jumped 6'8" by my junior year. So I kind of opened some doors for me, so I could
Yeah.
kind of look around a little bit. So I think I
And,
might have emailed some big schools.
and you're 6'5". I mean, the one thing that we can't coach is height, right? We love height. So there's a little bit
Yeah.
of like, all right, he may not have the whatever marks I think I need, but the dude's 6'5" and got some athleticism. I might be able to
Yeah,
coach that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was an aspiring decathlete. So I had done my first one in seventh grade, and I did that same decathlon every year all the way through high school.
Oh, cool.
So I had some marks there. I was obviously always ran a decent 1500, and I was big. I was good in the throws. I was a baseball guy, and I was athletic enough, so I
What
managed the throws.
was that I'm going to say the real decathlon, meaning did it have the pole vault? Because like in Alabama,
Yeah.
oh, in Alabama, no, we don't do the javelin in Alabama. Well, actually, we do now, but they used to trade the javelin for the triple jump. So I guess they probably added javelin now. But I know some decathlons like this will skip the pole vaulting for maybe obvious reasons or whatnot. When you say you did the decathlon all the way through, did you do the pole vault as well?
Yeah, that was the one event that we didn't do. So we traded that for the triple jump.
Okay, okay, maybe
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking. Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay, okay, okay. Okay, keep going, keep going.
Yeah, so I was yeah, really absorbed with it. And that, during the recruiting process, like I had reached out to maybe a couple big schools. Like everyone has like Oregon on the list, right? So, I probably reached out to them, and they reached back and say, "Hey, maybe you could walk on, if you hit 6'9" or 6'10" this year." But it wasn't realistic. Like by the time I, got to the application stuff, I had just applied to like the local schools, and then I honestly didn't make my decision until like the deposit deadline of May 1st. And that's when I
Wow.
was like, hey, I told URI I was going to URI.
So wait a minute, you went to University of Rhode Island and you coach at Rhode Island now.
I do, yeah, yeah, and honestly,
Oh
I had a
man.
couple friends who came down here, um, and got older guys than, and so from Central Massachusetts, not teammates of mine, but guys that were going to other schools that ended up at URI.
Right.
So I knew a little bit about the program, and when I did a
Yeah.
visit, I hung out with those guys, and um, for me, like track was everything, and there were a few boxes in track and field that I really wanted to check off. Uh, Coming from a school that had no facility at all, like no outdoor, no indoor. We ran around in the halls when the weather was
Oh.
bad, and then we ran around in the parking lot or on grass when the weather was good.
Wait,
Um,
wait. In high school you did that? So all this
yeah,
6'9" and cross country and running the 2 mile, all that was parking lot stuff. You did not have any kind of, not even to go to a neighboring school for their track
no, we
to,
never did.
so you
We
only
never
saw
did.
a track at meets.
Yeah, we would throw even for like discus and jab, we'd throw off of like the basketball court on, into the field. So
Wow.
yeah, we had
What about high jump? Did you have a high jump pit and bar to practice with?
Yeah, we had a high jump. We had high jump pads, and we jumped off like an old dusty gym floor. It's not there anymore. They like rebuilt the school a bunch of years back. But yeah, the high jumping is like it was an old gym. Like the 3 point arc that couldn't even go into the corners because it was so narrow. So like the high jump area, it was basically like the entire gym floor.
I,
It's like
I'm, I mean, that has to be. when college coaches are looking, I've coached for 10 years, so this would have been like if I was like, oh, this kid's 6'9", I need a little bit higher, or 6'8", whatever. But he's 6'5". I'd like to talk, let me learn some more. And then you start telling me like, yeah, man, we're doing this in the hallways. I've got this gym that looks like it should have been in the movie Hoosiers. This is where I do high jumping. Oh, and by the way, I'm really doing a lot of mileage. I'm really doing 2 miles. Like
Yeah.
there'd be a little bit like, well, wait a minute. If I get this kid and actually train him for the high jump, like I'd be excited about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, but even at the time, like even I think in college, like there was still like a lot of old school methods where not necessarily like jumpers going and out and running mileage or anything like that, but
Right.
that was even before the academy, like the track and field academy. So coaches weren't even like getting like certified with like their level two, level one, level two, level three.
Right.
And so we were, in high school, we were just running mileage and doing hard workouts all the time and then
Yeah.
doing technique when our legs were dead.
Yeah.
And then even in college, you kind of get there and it's like that stuff is still sort of happening. You're running 10 by
Yeah.
200 and then the next day you're gonna do a jump session and like it
It,
never really, so like I
it's
said earlier, my regret was sticking through and continuing to run all these years where
right.
like now I kind of smartened up a little bit and or at least I believe I have. And like I wouldn't do
Yeah.
that nowadays.
Yeah.
I wouldn't if I was trying to be a speed power guy, I would
Yeah.
get away from those things.
It's interesting if when you're listening to this, a few weeks ago, we had Mike McCarroll on the podcast. He was a pole vaulter and pole vault coach, and we're talking about some of the, he's done some speaking at like the Texas Track and Field Coaches Association stuff, and he said he did one on like the bait, like how to basically coach a kid out of the hallway. Kids never pole vaulted. How do you do that? And then he did another one where it was a little bit more advanced. And I asked him, I was like, which one did you get the most like feedback from? And he's like, actually, the second one, call it a little bit more advanced. And he goes, everybody knows the basics, Mike, and that one. And I was like, bro, that's not true. I'm sorry. One of my I told the story of do you know what Reddit is? Have you heard of Reddit?
Yeah.
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 Do you ever go on, like, do you understand the how it's
Yeah, I do understand. I
yeah.
honestly have not I haven't
Yeah, yeah.
dove too deep into it, but yeah.
It's basically a message board. So you go there and they have all these what they call subreddits, and it's every stinking topic in the world: cats, politics, of course, track and field, pole vaulting, like all this. And it's a message board. And I love going on there, and you will see questions from coaches, and I'm not judging at all, but you will see questions from coaches, asking the body, everybody that wants to respond, how to do some of the, I mean, just most basic stuff that you'd be like, wow, how do you not know that? Like everybody, like go on YouTube and you can find that. The basics are some of the most important
Hmm.
aspects there are. And there are still plenty of guys and gals who don't have, I'm going to say they don't have access to the basics, but that's a little tough, right? With today's world of now YouTube and USTFCCA and Altus and USATF and like it's even peer to peer. It's a little hard to say they don't have access, but there are still plenty of basics that I guarantee you I could go if I wanted to, I could go out and find you 10 coaches right now that say, hey, for high jumpers, yeah, we do a 2 mile warm up, and then we do a 10 by 200. And then tomorrow we'll come back and we'll do some jumping. But full jumping, by the way, over the bar, not ply. I'm talking about full jump. I guarantee you, and they'll think they're doing it correctly. That's all they know. It's how they were coached.
Yep.
So that
Yep.
that is there's a lot of basics that need the still today in 2025, 2026 that need to be addressed.
Yeah, it's probably less prevalent now, but
I hope that's all.
I hope.
That's as
I hope.
good. That's
Yeah.
a good as response as I can give you. I can't say yeah for sure. I'm like nope, nope. I just hope that's I hope.
Well, from a recruiting perspective, like these kids, like
Mm,
we get into the weeds sometimes. We
mhm.
talk about training and what they're doing, and it seems like more kids are knowledgeable and they have a better understanding of
But is that
what's being
because?
taught nowadays.
But is that because of the kids that you're recruiting?
It could be. I
I
mean,
I bet I'm assuming you're probably not recruiting a 6 foot high jumper boy.
right.
Okay. Go I'm gonna say go do this. Don't go do this. Don't waste your time. Go talk to 10 6 foot high jumpers and say, hey,
Yeah.
what do you just what's an average jump day for you guys? What's an average week look like? Boy, I would not be surprised if half of them said, oh yeah, man, it's tough. I'm a tough high jumper, coach. I do 2 miles every day and I do quarter repeats, and that's gonna make me a good high jumper because that's what coach says. I guarantee it, but we still have a big Think about your own coaching experience from high school. You had a distance coach that knew a lot from
Hmm.
experience and things like that,
Hmm.
and then you basically didn't have anybody else.
Hmm.
That's not, like I said, that's not uncommon. It's not the majority, I don't think, but that's not uncommon to have no one else or someone who, a parent whose son is a high jumper, daughter's a high jumper, and says, "Oh, well, I can help." And it's like, well, when in high school, I was a jumper, and you know what we did? We did 2 miles, 10 by 200s, full jumps every day, whatever. We coach how we were coached until we get educated.
Right.
And some people don't take that leap, that next step of education.
Yeah, they resist it. Because even from my experience, like I had done a high jump camp, I think going into my senior year at Wheaton College. I don't know if you've ever
Oh,
heard of
Paul
Wheaton.
Souza, baby, come on.
I was just about to bring up
I
Paul.
know you were. That's why I was like, come on, man.
Yeah, so I was seriously considering Wheaton. Like it kind of came down to URI and Wheaton and
Sure.
Syracuse and BU was that was kind of like my group. And
Wow.
and Wheaton obviously was the outlier being Division III school, but they had a lot of success because Paul Souza was the head coach there and he was like a national level coach and
Mhm.
really well respected. And so I would go and do his clinic.
Nice.
I would race cross country on like a Tuesday and then I would drive I would drive over to Wheaton, which is like a 45-minute drive, and then I would go and literally high jump. And that was like a
Wow.
6 or 8 week thing in the fall of my senior year. And like the whole time, him and Mark Mangicotti, who is the Harvard coach now, they were like, "Dude, what are you doing? Like you're good at high jump. You have like this ability. Like,
Yeah.
you can be a decathlete. Like, you got to stop. You got to stop doing all this distance stuff." And I was like, at the time, just I don't know what the reason was exactly, but I was just resistant to it. I
Well,
wanted to run cross country. I loved it, and
and
I was like, I'll get to high jump when I get there.
you're a kid. And what I mean by
Yeah.
that is, coach tells me to run 2 miles. Let me tell you, I'd have a different thought if a high jumper I'm recruiting says, "Hey, coach, thanks for recruiting me. I told my coach that I'm no longer doing cross country." I'd be like, "Whoa, wait." Like, I don't agree with you doing cross country, but coach is coach. It isn't unsafe. Like, he's not doing something unsafe. So you're going to go and tell your coach what? I don't know, man. I'd have a little different, like the attitude of that is a little, so you're a kid. Coach tells me to run, I run. That's what I would expect of you.
Right.
There's some authority there. And you brought up another guy. So I know Paul very well, love him to death. What a great singer, what a great coach. You brought up another good friend and Gill podcast alum, Mark Mangiacotti, one of the originals, baby. I think he was episode 4. He's an OG, baby.
Wow. Yeah.
So I love Mark to death. Known him for forever. Love him and his wife. They're great, great people. Okay, so you go to URI.
Hmm.
Do you become a decathlete?
Yeah, that was part of the deal. I was, I came in and they had basically. So number one was go to a place that had facilities. So
Hmm.
like that was like my number one or one of three kind of like criteria for choosing the school.
Right.
So BU had has like the Mecca indoor track. Like Wheaton had a great 200-meter flat track, URI as well. And so all those schools checked off that box.
Okay.
Number two was I would say like realistically, like are they set up to train decathletes?
Hmm.
And so because that was what I wanted to do. I was almost even at that point too big to be like an elite high jumper. Like even at 6'5", most of those guys are 160 pounds maybe.
Right.
I was pushing 200 going into college. And so I could always be a solid high jumper in the Atlantic 10, but I felt like decathlon, like I was physique wise a decathlete already.
Right.
And so they had just kind of gotten this group of decathletes together. I was maybe class number 2 or 3, I would say. The Atlantic 10 had started doing a decathlon like a few years before that. So and that all played a role for sure.
Mhm.
And so I felt like, in that recruiting process, like URI was going to be able to, they were going to be able to offer that. Like I could
Right.
train with this group, this core group for a number of years and
Mhm.
develop with that group. And then the last one was just like success of the team for sure. I mean, that played a huge role. So that was the third one.
Yeah.
They were very competitive in the conference, in the Atlantic 10 conference for at least at that point, like 8 years. Like they had won a number of championships.
Hmm.
And although my high school was small, like that was still something that was like really important to us. Like we were always kind of contending to win league titles, and that was just so much fun. Like strategizing what events everyone should be competing in to beat like our our rivals, and
Right.
so URI was obviously showing that they had the ability to contend on a year to year basis. And so yeah, those three things kind of came together all in one place. And so URI, especially since I knew some of the guys on the team. A kid just the town next to me had already committed back in the fall, and he was like one of the best throwers in central Massachusetts. And he was like trying to convince me to live with him that year and everything like that. So yeah, all signs kind of pointed to one direction. And so by the time I got to late April, yeah, it was decision time, and I chose URI.
So number one makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure a lot of kids think of it though, but so you're kind of a mature 18-year-old uh, based off of this discussion because like you're actually there's thought to it, not just who offers me the most, who has the coolest uniforms. It's that that they, not even like necessarily that it's far or near from my home, like because you talked about Oregon, like it's like there seemed like there could have been a you could have gone to somewhere else, right?
Hmm.
So love that it's like all right, I don't have facilities. I know that I need some. You don't need every facility and every piece of equipment. Don't tell my bosses I said that, but you need something, right?
Yeah.
To reach your potential anyway. So I love that. Two, again, this is where I talk about that maturity of an 18-year-old. Like for you to think about like, oh, are they set up for success in the multis? Because it's very easy because you don't know any. You're not a multi in high school. You're a multi-eventer. You're not in a combined eventer, and so
Hmm.
you don't even know what that means. And what I mean by that is you don't know. Like you could easily think like, oh, do they have decent coaches in each category? Well, that must mean they're set up for decathlon. That's not always true, right? You know this probably now at this point in your career. Uh, so that you were even thinking about, oh, I can go there and be a successful decathlete no matter where I go, but actually you thinking about where are they set up for me to be successful? That's an interesting caveat. And then again, the team aspect. So all three, like I love these three. Like I would have loved to have recruited you, bro. This third part of like, hey, that's cool. I want to be good, individually, but I want to be pushing for championships. Like I want I loved in high school doing the strategizing of what events do I need to do and does my teammate Fred need to do and all this stuff to beat our rivals. That's you recruit 17, 18-year-old kids. I don't perceive that in most 17, 18-year-old kids. And again, no judgment because they're freaking 17, 18-year-old kids. I have a lot of grace for them. So I love that like actual thought process of you as you're picking a school and you end up down there. So how far from home is URI from?
75 minutes, not
Okay.
far.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's decentish. Yeah. Um, and you end up down the road. That's so cool. So what did you end up at least starting out as a major?
I was like I was at the orientation, like the summer orientation in like June or July or something, and everyone was, we were all supposed to kind of like head to the like the major that we're
Right.
interested in, and I was going to go in as undecided, and then like marine bio, like I had a couple of the other track guys that I knew coming in, were going to be marine bio majors, so I just walked over with them, and so then I just signed up for like the marine bio classes, and officially that's what I started in. Yeah.
You
And
didn't
it's
get
that's a big major at URI too. Like that's a big one.
you didn't get your degree. Well, there's so few marine biology. Anybody who has marine biology, I assume it's a big because that's not every school for crying
Right.
out loud for
Yeah.
maybe obvious reasons. You didn't get your degree in marine biology.
No, I didn't. I
Oh, I was about
didn't.
to say,
Uh,
bro, how in the world are you a track coach? You give up marine biologist.
yeah, yeah. No, I had a really tough freshman year. I I just did a lot of procrastinating. Yeah, I really did. Like with school, like school has never been my forte.
Sure.
Not it is not necessarily because I was incapable. It was because like I just really didn't enjoy like the classes and through high school and middle school.
Yeah.
And so by the time I got to college, I was like fully it was track. Like that was my priority. It was track. And and I prioritized that so much that I was almost unable to do it after a year.
Oh, I
So
gotcha.
I had work to do, like kind of coming back after my freshman year. I did break my collarbone like at the start of outdoor. So, like things really spiraled after that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, did that help or hurt? Because I could see that
Oh, it
help.
hurt bad.
I was gonna say I could see it helping of like, oh, okay, I couldn't do track, so I really had to focus on the academics. But I could also see like, oh, something's been taken away from me. I can't do track. Well, what the hell does any of this matter at that point? So it was the latter, huh? Kind
It
of
was the
the
latter. It was big
mm,
time the latter. So yeah, after the spring semester, I had some choices to make, and so then I just kind of just went all in. I was like, if I want to do what I love to do for the next few years, like I gotta make some changes. So I did. Took some summer courses like for the first couple summers after that, and I had ended up with like a 3.0 GPA at the end of all of it. So. Kind of came back pretty well after a really, really t challenging start.
yeah.
And honestly, as like my grades got better, like my performances, like every season got better and better too.
Hmm. What did you end up switching your major to?
So I think I went back to like undecided for a short time, but because I had so many science courses already, and because by the time I was a sophomore, I was like, all right, coaching is like I love this so much that I'm just going to make my
Uh,
life
I was
about
gonna
track
ask.
and field. So about sophomore year, I decided that I was going to be a coach, and then it was like, all right, well, what major would best set me up for that lifestyle? And so I chose kinesiology, which
Yeah.
was another huge program here at URI. I mean, amongst athletes, it's probably the most popular. But we also have business and engineering, which are big amongst our team at least. And so yeah, kinesiology, and you could go three different ways with that. Phys ed was one. Health fitness, or sorry, exercise science was another one, and health fitness was the third. And I went health fitness, and a lot of my classmates ended up getting into like personal training and gym ownership and that type of thing. But yeah, for me, like I still had to take all the sciences and felt like that was the right road, and I'm glad I did.
Uh, Sometimes we want things to be like a light switch, or the light is off or the light is on, and we think about like our career like that, like, oh, there was a moment where the light switched on and I knew I was going to be a track coach. And actually, it's after 300, I'm finally figuring out it's more like a light fader. The fade, right?
The fade, yeah, yeah.
You mentioned clarified a little bit somewhere around freshman or sophomore year. You're like, okay, like you explained it almost like a light switch of like, okay, I know I want to be a coach. I'm all in. But it actually seems more like that fader. Walk me through that fade. What was it? Was it having track taken away from you because of a collarbone? Was it almost having track taken away from you because of academics and things like that?
Mhm.
Was it a coach at URI? What helped continue? Because you had some, the fader wasn't at zero when you went to college. Like you had done some of this in high school, so it was a little. It was, let's call it 10 to 20%. Something kept nudging that up to 80 now and 100%. When you look back, what do you think it was?
I don't know. Maybe it's my general nature around the sport and just like being interested in what coach was doing. I was the guy that would come into the coach's office like an hour before practice and just bother him. So like, and that happens to me now. Like there's always guys like in the office coming through and just asking questions and doing all this stuff. So that was me at the time. And honestly, like because of academics, and I had like that big choice to make whether to even come back to college for my sophomore year. And it's like because I was so unsure of what I would do if I didn't come back to college, like maybe that scared me enough where I was like, all
Yeah,
right, I gotta like commit myself to this at like a much higher level than I have in the past,
right.
so that I can, do this thing that I enjoy doing at least for a few more years. And maybe it was like, sometime during my sophomore year, I was like, you know what, this is so enjoyable. That I'm just gonna continue on with it. And then, I mean, I've been all in ever since. So we're talking now what 2001 to 2025, so 24 years of
Hmm.
my life, and I'm 34 years old, so
Hmm.
has been like really kind of dedicated and to the love of this sport. So
I like how you put that, when you said almost the fear of what would happen if I didn't come back or if I didn't have track. Because a lot of times we think of fear as a negative thing, right?
mhm.
Here, fear was a positive thing. I was like, hey, man, I know what's on the other side of this that doesn't involve track might not be so great. So I
Mhm.
better stay on this side of it and stick with track and field, which means I'm going to have to make some lifestyle changes. Might not
Yeah.
be the proper way to say, but make some changes. And it did, and it worked out in positive. So that's a really cool, like, thinking about 24, 20 years ago, you can look back now and be like, man, I'm glad I went right on the fork, not left,
Yeah,
because it's had
yeah.
a lot of benefits beyond track and field. When you start thinking about family and the kids that you've been positively affected and things like that, and a career, that's a lot of satisfaction there. That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah.
So you were, it's funny, we do hear this a lot with coaches, people who become track coaches. We talked about that gym rat mentality. If you're going to be a basketball player, you got to always be in the gym shooting. If you're going to be a decathlete, you're going to be at the track 24/7, shot put, high jump,
Hmm.
hurdles, etc. Coaches, it appears, have a higher propensity to be an office rat. They're always in the office of their coach. They're asking typically different types of questions than the other athletes. So, a lot of times an athlete will ask a question of, why are we doing this workout? And they're not necessarily, some of it is 25% of it is pushing back of like, why in the hell are we doing this workout? But the other 75 is genuine curiosity, just like why this workout. Someone who is going to become a track coach, we're learning, they're asking questions of like, hey, why do we do this workout? But then they follow it up with, because we did this yesterday. Why are we doing this today? Or hey, so what do you got planned tomorrow? Like you're actually like taking the puzzle pieces of the workout, and is if you're going to become a future coach, or if you have the likelihood of becoming a coach, you're trying to put the puzzle pieces together of like, oh, this is how the workouts fit together, not individual workouts. Like you're trying to see that's what a coach does, right? You're looking
Hmm.
at the whole week, the month, the year. Someone who's going to become a track coach is starting to trying to figure that out. So when you were in coach's office, were you not only asking those type questions, were you asking other questions of like, so how do uh, I see that catalog on your desk. So do you have to order equipment too? Or how do you do the buses? Were you asking those questions at some point in college as well?
Maybe a little bit. I definitely think I was influential in like our training program, like during college.
Mhm.
Um, so a little more background about like URI and like what it was like in the office at that time. So Coach John Copeland was the head coach at URI.
Legend. There forever, right?
Legend, yeah.
Yeah, I know that name. Yeah.
He stuck through until 2021, so we got us through COVID,
Yeah.
and so that ended his 39-year career at URI. But he'd also done 10 years at UNH before that, and he had done a couple as a grad student at UConn, where he graduated back in like the 60s. So
Holy.
so he had a 50-year coaching career. So he was old school. Like he truly was old school. He was the head coach.
Sure.
He had, this organizational, he had the place organized in a way that, he knew could elicit like success within the program, right? He would hire young coaches as his assistants. So my event coach was actually a guy named Rob Witten, and he was in his second year. I think we were his first recruiting class.
I know that
Uh,
name. Yeah.
Rob Witten, yeah. So he's now at the University of Southern Maine.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, yes.
yeah, where he's from Maine. So like he's also back home,
Good.
and uh, and so he went back to coach the men's program, but since then their programs have combined men and women. Another thing about URI that's still relatively unique is that we're just a men's program. We also have a women's program here, but separate coaching
Yep.
staff, separate programs.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that because we're going to have the women's
Yeah,
head coach on here. Hopefully, if you're listening to this now, it'll be next week if I plan this out correctly. So yeah, we're going to talk about that because that used to be the norm, and now it feels like that's the abnorm. And so we're going to talk about how that works and all that kind of stuff. So that's good preview
right.
for a continued conversation.
So at the time in 2009, when I came in, like Coach Copeland was running the show. He has this young coach, Rob, who is in his second year, and they had just gotten destroyed like in the conference the year before. Um, and so like they had to like start to make some changes. But anyways, I think when you have like a coach that's been at the helm for so long and has been doing things a certain way, and like it was a type of program with the jumpers, especially in the fall, and everyone was together. Like they were all just training together and doing like similar workouts. When we were on the stadium steps, like even the throwers would be out there and the middle distance kids, and like it was just kind of like one of those programs. And so, and that's the stuff I like to do anyways. I like the pain, right? And so, when I was sitting here in Rob's office and we would discuss training and like what we're doing today and tomorrow and the rest of the week, I think like my influence in like that type of work was probably outweighed what he knew we should maybe be up to on like a day-to-day basis, especially since Cope was doing that stuff too.
Right.
So I don't think we ever really got to the point of like this modern training style where it's like we're training like we're training neuromuscularly as opposed to just like, all right, we'll hit the weight room really hard, do heavy
Right.
stuff. We'll go out and do like long workouts, like long, really hard workouts. Body's always kind of beat up, but like, hey, that's good for you. So I think like
Makes you tough.
he knew that wasn't right, right?
Yeah.
But he knew that wasn't that wasn't gonna get us to where we really wanted to be. But we were all in on it, and we believed in it too, and that
Right.
definitely makes a big difference.
100%.
So at the time, like we were just like a tough team like that. Like you said, it makes you tough. Um, since then, we've obviously like programming has changed a lot, but uh, what Cope had built for all those decades, like logistically, like all those types of things, kind of remain the same. But we'll get into that, I'm sure, later.
Do you ever think you're 34, Cope coached forever. I love him. What a legend. When you're 20 years from now, you'll be 54. 30 years from now, you'll be 64. You'll probably be, you know, hopefully you're retired by 64, to be honest with you, but just for your own sake. But, at 50, 60 years old, do you think kids are going to be like, yeah, I was with Coach Baltzell and, he's 55, 60, he's old school. And
I know.
like
I don't know.
it's easy for us to think about our coaches who are older. It's like, they're old school. You're gonna be old school one day. They're gonna be like, yeah, he used to do X, Y, and Z, and whoever they're gonna be talking to will be like, wow, really? Oh man, that's crazy. He didn't have coaching education, and like, no, he did. It's just interesting how that's going to met out. You are going to be old school one day, brother, and
Yeah.
we will not be doing the same things today in 2055 or whatever. It'll be different in some forms or fashion. There's still some
Right.
things today that you do that Copeland and those guys, those old school guys did as well. There's still some things you do today. There's something maybe small, maybe large, but there's some things you do. It just evolves is really what it is. So it was just funny when you said he was really old school, and I was like, Trent, you're going to be old school one day. That's just cool little like look in the future type thing. So you had influence. So you're an office rat. You're in there asking questions, just observing how people do
hmm
things, and
hmm
you're like, okay, this is it. I'm gonna be a track coach. So you end up graduating. You get a degree in kinesiology, health and
hmm
fitness. What's your first route to become a track coach?
I got into some like private coaching like that first year. So I think that was kind of like the plan was to do a bunch of private coaching, like at least to start. I had during the summer times for I think it was 3 years, including the year after I graduated, I spent the summer on Martha's Vineyard, and I was just working out there. And honestly, like my wife and we were at that point together, like we thought maybe Martha's Vineyard could be like the life, and I would just become a teacher, and I would coach at Martha's Vineyard High School or
I,
something like that.
I don't know that I've ever been there. I've heard it. When you say working there, what does that mean? Like, I don't know. Martha's Vineyard in my head is like a big, uh, um, oh gosh, what do they call those things like on Sunday? Farmers market. It's a big farmers market. I have no clue. Literally, I have no, you might be laughing like, what are you, you're an idiot. It's a city. I have no clue. What do you mean you went to Martha's Vineyard and were working and you and future, I don't know if you were married, but at least future wife is talking
Mhm.
about like, this may be the place. What does that mean?
It was just an island. It's an island off the coast of Massachusetts.
Okay.
It's like comprised of like 6 towns, but it's just a regional school called Martha's Vineyard High School.
Oh, okay. So
Um,
there's a high school. Okay, okay, okay. All right.
Yeah, and I don't know how many residents there are through the year. There might be like 30,000 or something like that residents that
Okay.
live there, but then it balloons to like well over 100,000 during the summertime.
Yeah, I know
So I
it's
was
very
among summer
popular.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I
And I was like working for a restaurant, and I was kind of like running like the warehouse for this huge restaurant. And
okay.
so
And so
I
you
was
guys
making good
thought
money.
this might be, hey, there's worse places to live, right? There's a
Yeah.
reason why it balloons to 100,000. It's a very coveted place to go to and probably obviously to live. So you guys were thinking like, oh, okay, maybe this coaching thing, but maybe Martha's Vineyard for our lives.
Yeah, I mean the idea honestly was to coach at Martha's Vineyard High School. Like that was kind of like the idea at the time because I just spent summers there and we enjoyed it so much. Like it was a
Hmm.
really, really fun place to be. And so we were thinking about possibly settling down there.
Hmm.
And then I kind of came to this like this during the year after I graduate, right after the summertime when it's like, all right, like the restaurant's going to close down for the late fall and we're going to have to move on and do some other things. Because a lot of those restaurant people, man, they don't get out of it. They just get stuck every year. They'll go Martha's Vineyard, then they'll go to Aspen, and they'll do the winter thing,
Oh,
and then they'll just keep
really?
going back and forth, and that's their life forever. So I was like, I'm not so
Wow.
sure I want that. So I had to tell like the restaurant owner, I was like, I'm just getting out of this. And so then I ended up kind of going back to my hometown in Massachusetts and spent some time with some individual athletes, just doing some private coaching. I played a lot of golf. I rode my bicycle and raced my bicycle thousands of miles that year for sure.
Like
Uh,
BMX or like road bike?
road bike, yeah, road racing.
Really?
Yeah.
When did those two things, those are, well, one's not necessarily unique, but golfing, a lot of people golf. Road racing is still fairly unique in the sense of like, there's not a, my neighbor's not a road racer, but my neighbor plays golf, right? When did
Mhm.
those two things come into your lives?
Um, I don't know. When I was younger, I just rode around in trails on like a legit mountain bike. I wasn't racing or anything when
Right.
I was a kid, but I enjoyed it. And so I ended up getting a decent road bike probably when I was, I don't know, sometime in high school. And so,
Okay.
a few years later, when I had an opportunity to ride a lot, 'cause I would bring out to the vineyard and I would use it as like my commuter also. So I was just on my bike a lot. And then that year, I ended up getting into some racing and really enjoyed it, but it's an expensive sport and I didn't have any money. So
Right, right, right.
um yeah, so it was just like, all right, I need to move my life forward. And
Yeah.
that was when I actually started looking into collegiate coaching jobs.
Hmm.
Yeah. So,
Why collegiate? And I mean, you don't necessarily have a teaching degree, so maybe that's the answer, but why college coaching over high school?
yeah, that probably is the answer.
Mhm.
Because I didn't have a teaching degree and I guess you can still coach in high school, but pay like I at some point I had to make some money.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
pay
That's
is
a good
important.
lesson.
Yeah, and so I knew that like there was no way I could ever just live on a high school coach's salary and just do
Right.
private coaching. I guess if you start a club and there are ways around it for sure,
Yeah.
but um yeah, so I started looking online and talking to Rob and seeing if he could, if he had any recommendations or anything like that. Like, hey, if you hear anything, if you hear openings, just like let me know. And
Right.
honestly, as a decathlete, as a former decathlete, and still training, to be honest, I it definitely there's a lot more open doors for you.
For sure.
People are looking for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they have an open throws position or an open jumps position or hurdles or sprints, like oftentimes they'll just post it as um, a decathlete preferred or something like that. And so, yeah, the kind of the first one that came up, or one of the first ones that came up was Assumption College, which
Hmm.
is a
Hmm.
Division II school up in Massachusetts, where my sister happened to attend through her years as a track and cross country runner.
Oh,
Um, and so I go up there, talk to the coach. There was like one other person even interested in the job because it was basically like volunteer pay. I think I was getting paid $8,000 that first year. And so yeah, I would go up every day. I was living in Sutton and I would commute 35 minutes to Worcester and I would just go and do everything I could possibly do to help that team, which was not in good shape when I got there.
it's funny when you say, it's you can't slash it's hard to make money as a high school coach, not a high school teacher. Uh, because a stipend is probably anywhere between 1,500 to, I'm sure there's some suburbs that are doing 5,000 for their coaches, and yet you take a job for 8,000.
Yeah.
But maybe there's like, oh, but I'm not staying at Assumption at 8,000. That is a stepping stone for a more decent payday. Very true about decathletes. It's interesting. I'm in a very unique spot. I, I this is not very humble when I say this, but I've probably have deep dive interviewed more coaches than track and field coaches in America than anybody, right?
Mhm.
We're at 300 something. And so some of the top, I mean, I'm talking about top, like I've always said that like there's some amazing coaches out, like really, really good coaches. And then there's about five that are just a step above. Boo Schexnayder is an
Hmm.
automatic, like that's an example I give, a Dan Path, etc. And there are some of the greatest coaches that I've had on here on the show. And when I talk about great, I'm talking about big body of work, not just they had an Olympian or one gold medalist. I'm talking about multiple medalists, multiple educational is what like they educate a lot of people. So like I think about Brooks Johnson, I think about Cliff Revelto, I think about Harry Mara, and those three specific individuals, like Brooks Johnson really changed. He was an OG too. I think he's episode 20 or something. But he talked about like you are not a sprints coach, you are not a jumps coach, you're not a distance coach, you're a track and field coach, that all the events are the same objective. Move the center of mass down the runway or in a circle. You just do
Hmm.
it in a different way. In a circle, maybe you're going in circle, to spin move for the shot, or in the javelin, you're just moving your center of mass down that runway and now putting it into the javelin, the 100-meter dash, the long jump, etc. And those three guys who are, I'd have an argument that they're not three of the top coaches we've ever had in America, and certainly maybe this world as well. Brooks, Cliff, and Harry Mara. They've coached a few more than a few good people. They were very adamant that I'm not even like Cliff is very much known for high jump, and he's like I'm not a high jump coach. I'm a track and field coach. Harry Mara obviously known for the decathlon and what he's done in the multis throughout his whole career, but he's like I'm not a decathlon coach. I'm a track and field coach. And a Brooks Johnson who he's the one guy that is hard to pinpoint. He was the distance coach at Stanford, coached Petty Sue Plummer, but also coached many 100-meter 9.8 guys. And it's
Hmm.
like that's
Hmm.
the example is you're a coach, and so decathletes are very sought after, somewhat not right in the sense of that just because you're a decathlete or heptathlete doesn't mean you know how to coach the throws and stuff like that. But you certainly have a higher propensity. Heck, we even here, we hire almost not almost. I think every one of our salespeople are former track coaches or track athletes. When we get a decathlete applying for a job, it's a psychological thing, dude. We automatically go, oh. So Trent's a decathlete, huh? All right. Yeah, you're automatically some percentage above from the start line than someone who was a jumper or hammer throw, whatever. It's just an automatic. It's really, really odd. We covet decathletes just because of your breadth of potential knowledge. Again, you don't just because you're a multi doesn't mean you even care about throws for crying out loud, but
Hmm.
it's when you get the right person. So assumption. So what was it like, coaching versus being coached is two different things. And we sometimes think because you were coached, you can be a coach, and that's certainly not true. Uh, what was it like going to the other side of the coin, if you will, and now instead of being told what to do and having some influence into that, but being told, hey, you're going to do this, today's the workout is this and that, to now you're the person prescribing the workout. You've got to decide what does this group do on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. What was that initial how did you handle that initial change and responsibility?
Hmm. I actually like, how you're talking about the light switch, like the
Hmm.
dimmer, basically. I think like this wasn't a situation where I just like switched on from one to the other. I
Oh,
think
great. Yeah,
honestly there was like that transition phase like right through.
great point.
Um and so like in if like so many other like really young coaches, like I got back into training like
Hmm.
as I was programming and coaching like these athletes, I got back into training myself. So it really was like a very kind of slow transition. And so yeah, that first year I was coaching basically the jumpers and the multis, and we had men and women together, and I was enjoying it. The head coach was Stacy Wentz, who I don't believe is in coaching anymore, but she had kind of jumped around to a few different jobs. But she gave me that first opportunity, and I will forever be grateful. And so for that first year, made no money, drove up, did my commute every single day, 5 days a week. Um, and that wasn't the expectation. Maybe it wasn't 5, maybe it was like 4 days a week or something, but that wasn't the expectation. But that's how I felt. I would kind of rise up the ranks at a higher pace or at a quicker pace than others might be able to do.
Right.
Because I and everyone kind of tells you, if you get into coaching, like you're going to you're probably going to struggle like financially for a while.
Mhm.
You're going to kind of pay your dues. And so I always had it in my mind that I was going to have to do that, and I was going to have to be willing to do that, and I just was. And so I paid my dues. I worked harder than and more than I was being paid to
Mhm.
do. And so at the end of that year, um, she actually let our throws coach go, and I took over the throwers for like a significant pay raise. I think I was getting paid like 20 grand for that second year.
Ooh,
So I
nice.
had all of the field event athletes.
Yeah.
And for those field event coaches out there, it's not the same as it's not the same time spent as it is with like sprinters and distance kids,
Right.
because of like the technical aspects. So it's like a lot more just like hands-on coaching and stuff.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I basically just coached every single day for that
Mhm.
second year. I would just from morning to night, I would just coach all day long with
Wow.
with the various groups.
Man.
And so that was kind of an outlier year for sure. And then the next year, Stacy actually moved on to another school. And that day that she told the AD that she was leaving, he calls me and offers me the job. Like it was sometime in the summertime. I can't remember exactly when.
Wait a minute. You're 24,
Yeah.
5-ish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I guess first of all, just because the offer doesn't mean you accepted. Did you accept?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah,
dude.
Stacy actually called me that summer. He was probably, I don't know, say it was noon. She called me, and Nick, the AD, called me like at 2 o'clock. It was like hours later to offer me the job. She called him to tell me that she was leaving, and then he called to tell me that he called to ask me if I would take the job.
Wow, that had to be well, tell us what were your feelings when he called, assuming that you didn't when Stacy called you that you weren't you don't strike me as this person, but no judgment if you did. You don't strike me as the person going, "Oh, well that's my job." Like as for sure my
Right?
job.
No, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So when the AD actually does call you and says, "Hey, maybe you probably know Stacy's leaving. We'd like to offer you the job." What I mean, that feels like I'm gonna say a gut punch, but typically that means a negative, right? But kind of like it's a like a shock, like a cold shower
hmm
hits you. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, I have this opportunity. Like, what were your thoughts when
No,
AD
Mike,
calls?
that is exactly how I was feeling. Like I I don't know if I've ever actually felt like emotionally like those feelings that strong before. And I definitely have not felt them since then.
Yeah.
Like it was just like wow, my life, like the decision I like all these decisions I had made
Mhm.
from, not playing basketball to, going to URI
Yeah, that's
to like
right.
choosing to stay in school to to all these things to finally like to saying telling my boss at the vineyard I wasn't coming back, and he was pissed at me, by the way. I didn't mention that. To now it's like Nick calls me, he's like offers me this job, like a real job, like I can actually live on this.
Right.
And so yeah, we had just bought a house, my wife and I. Yeah, I know, it was kind of crazy. We're just bought a house in like northern Rhode Island, and it was a total fixer-upper. So like we had this huge project on our hands, and it was just going to be all work. It was going to be all my time, my effort, and all this stuff. And so now I have like this new job opportunity. So of course, like I accepted it, and yeah, that was like kind of like the start of like my professional life, like true start.
Yeah. I like how you said that because I very much dislike that even today in 2025, 2026, there are jobs that are $8,000 right now and
Mhm.
20,000, and I just dislike it. I don't believe in paying your dues, to be real frank with you. Now that doesn't mean I think you out of college should have been the head coach of Oregon. There is experience that you need to go up there, but paying your dues is typically just like you described. Is typically, oh, I had to volunteer or I had to make 8,000, which might as well be a volunteer, and things like that. And it's like, no, that's not true. You should make a livable wage from the jump. Now
Hmm.
that might not be 100,000, but maybe in today's livable wage, maybe 40, 50,000 is livable, and whatever it might have been back then. But to go through that process and then to become the head coach and have a livable wage, like I love how you immediately were like, all those decisions I made, not doing basketball, going to URI, not dropping out after freshman year, they all stack to this moment, and it kind
Hmm.
of sounds like it kind of just hit you
No,
during that.
it was like winning the
Yeah,
lottery. It
yeah.
was like winning like $1 million lottery. I was like, I couldn't even believe.
Tell
I couldn't
me,
believe it.
tell me you hung up and immediately called your wife.
I was at home. Like it was the summertime, so I was probably working on the house to be honest.
Honey.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it was crazy.
Oh,
And I
that's
think back to
so
it. I haven't thought about
cool.
that moment for a while, so now this kind of like brings that back up, and
That's
like it
so
was just
cool.
like one of the best, certainly one of the best moments of my life.
Okay. Um, so far, we're an hour and change in. You seem like a guy that you're a planner. I kind of get that sense from you. Like you like to make plans, although you may push them off a little bit. You talked about a little bit of procrastination, but that's okay.
Hmm.
We all have that. That's great. I appreciate you again being open and authentic there. Uh, you accept the job, you hang up, you tell the wife, hey, let's get steak tonight. We're gonna be okay. I got
Pretty
this new
much,
job.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I know how this goes, bro. But you also know, okay, I'm the head honcho now. I'm the head coach, not an assistant, not a part-time. The buck stops with me. You're an intelligent young man that even Stacy probably did a great job with what she had with her and everything like that. But there's things you would have done different. We all have, every assistant coach has that, oh, I'd probably have done this different. I'd focus here, whatever, blah, blah. What are some of the first things that you put into action now as the head coach of Assumption?
Well, during that conversation, Nick was like, he made it a point at the very end to say, and Trent, this is your team. And like and I don't remember too much of the conversation. I mean, we probably talked for 20 minutes, but at the end he said that, and like that's the part that I still remember to this day. And so at that point, I honestly like a lot of what went through my mind was what would Rob do? And I know he wasn't even the head coach at URI, but it was
Oh,
like because our relationship was so good,
yeah.
and I trusted him as a coach. And it's not that I didn't trust Cope. It's just like
Mhm,
I wasn't spending time with
mhm,
Cope like I
mhm,
was with Rob.
mhm.
And so a lot of it was I kind of knew how Rob did his organization, like yeah, he and like you said earlier, like we would talk about like orders and just like the meet schedule and like what is appropriate for for me to go, like what meets I should go to. And so like I had a basic background of like
Mhm.
of these types of things, and plus the first 2 years at Assumption, like a lot of those conversations were happening with Stacy and I. It's like, all right, what should we do as a team,
Right.
and just a little background about Assumption. We started like worst in the NE10, the Northeast 10, that was the conference. And so the idea was to build it like we had here at URI. Like we wanted a team. We didn't want just individuals trying to get kids to NCAAs. It's like we wanted to do some things in the conference. And so that's when like I had full control over like the direction of the team, and
Mhm.
we went just like full throttle, like straight for conference. Like after 2 years it was like, all right, we've done some good things, we've started to move up a little bit, and now it's like let's fill in the gaps, like let's do the in the recruiting process, and let's go after some conference titles
Right.
in a conference that like people definitely told me that you just like wouldn't be able to move up,
Right.
and so there's a chip on your shoulder like when people say things like that. And so yeah, we quickly did move up. We were contending during the next couple of years, and we never won a conference title, but we finished second, third on the women's side and on the men's side, like towards the end of
Wow.
my career there.
Yeah.
So
What do one of the things I don't think, and you were an assistant coach for a very short amount of time here, but my experience is that we don't do a very good job as head coaches of training, mentoring, teaching our assistant coaches to become future head coaches. The vast majority of people when they become a head coach have no clue what it actually takes. They learn on the job, right? because they never were as an assistant, they never were put in charge of equipment or put in charge of travel or put in charge of whatever. Or they're never even let into the world of a head coach. You know now better than me. Head coach beyond budgeting, scheduling, recruiting, coaching. You might in some schools, head coaches are part of committees to hire the basketball coach or whatever. Or you have conference meetings, things like that. Um, but you weren't assistant coach long enough to even learn those things. What was How many years were you the head coach at Assumption?
Two, yeah, 2 years as an assistant, 2 years as the head.
So when you became the head coach, what was something, again, I could just see your mind like, I think you said AD's name was Nick.
Yep.
After that phone call with Nick, I could just see like just a thousand things,
Hmm.
going on, both job related, profession related, and personal. This changes some things personal as well. So I can just see all that things going on. What did you think as you kind of as the week goes along and it kind of, like, okay, now reality is here. This is the job. I'm gonna go do it. What did you think? Okay, I'm gonna be the head coach. I am the head coach. This might be hard. I don't know. What did you think might be hard becoming the head coach? But when you got into it, 2 years later, you look back and you're like, oh, that actually wasn't as hard as I thought. Maybe something you were like, oh, I'm kind of concerned about creating a budget. I've never created a budget, but then you got into it and you're like, yeah, you know what? It's just numbers. What did you think was going to be hard and actually ended up being maybe a little easier than you thought?
Um, I would say like not like the office work has never really been a problem for me. I don't mind busy work, so like I'll do the ordering. Like I honestly even right now as a head coach, like I don't really have my assistants doing much outside of recruiting and coaching.
Mhm.
So like I'll try to handle like everything else.
So you're one
And
of those guys I just talked about. You're not doing a very when I say you, I'm doing the whole body you, not you. But
yeah,
your assistant's going to
collective
become
view. Yeah.
maybe going to become a head coach one day, and he or she's going to be in that chair
I know,
going.
I know.
And Trent didn't let me into any of
I
this
know.
stuff.
I've thought about that.
But I also very much when you said that though, I also very much I felt that too of like, hey man, I want you to go have the best throwers or whatever, recruit them and coach them. I'll take like it's a support thing too. It's like, hey, I got this part, man. I'll burden this so that you can go do what we all got into coaching for, by the way. Go
Mhm.
coach and recruit. So I also get that side of it too. I'm being a little judgy when I say, man, what are you doing? You're not helping these guys and gals out at all. But I also understand that part.
Well, from my perspective, like I want to make sure that like the other, the assistant coaches are doing thing like are kind of like working towards their strengths. So if their strength is in recruiting and and
It's a good
and
point.
coaching their kids and programming and that type of thing, like we'll just go all in for that. And
It's a
like
good
I'll
point.
I'll do the things that I don't necessarily like love doing, but
Yeah.
I'll kind of take that stuff on the chin. But
Good point. That's a very
um
decathlon way of looking at it. You're like, because you're like, hey, look, I don't like doing the mile. That might have been different for you, but I don't like doing the 15. But you know what? I'll do it. I got to do it because I got to get all 10 events in. So you're like, hey,
yeah.
man, I'll do the paperwork. I know you don't like doing it. No one does, but that's my 10th event. I'll get it done. It's a very decathlete way of thinking of things. I like that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But the thing, something that was like that I wasn't quite sure of was just how to like and I'm not the demanding type of person. Like I'm not going to demand respect, but like how do I have all these like student athletes who are just maybe some of them are almost as old as I am, like how do I have them like respect me in this role, as a coach and as someone who's gonna like hopefully take care of them and kind of lead them in the right direction.
Hmm.
And so that was something I wasn't really sure about even at that time because I had still been like training as an assistant coach. I was kind of training with them
Right.
and so I was like relating to them from like an athlete standpoint.
Right.
And it was slowly moving towards as from a coaching perspective too, but or from a coaching standpoint, but like I was still kind of one of them. And I
Hmm.
wasn't hanging out with them or anything like that, but it was in practice I still sort of felt like a student athlete.
Right.
And so then I had to really transition and as naturally as possible like into this role of like their leader.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't sure how that was going to work and honestly I never truly like mindfully adjusted my thought process. um I I just kind of like let it naturally occur over the
Mhm.
course of like that year and then in the following year. And I'm glad I did it that way because like I just like want to be genuine, with who I am and uh and it worked out just fine. So I'm glad I didn't go like put on the hard ass hat at some point and like try to kick kids off the team for doing things that they shouldn't have been doing, but like that I didn't really believe in anyways.
Yeah, yeah.
I just kind of took it from like my most genuine self, and I think that worked out just fine.
Yeah, that'd have been so, excuse me, so inauthentic.
Yeah,
Oh, I think I have to be this. So I'm going to go do this role. It's like, well, that's not who you are. Some
right,
people are, but that's not you. What are you doing? And
right.
you were an 18 to 22-year-old kid at one point. The kids are smart. They can tell who's faking, who's being themselves, who believes in what they're saying, who doesn't, who's saying stuff because they think they're supposed to say that as the head coach or whatnot. So,
Hmm.
very smart, I think, to be authentic, and not easy to do because again, we feel pressure. I've mentioned this book a few times on the podcast. Have you ever read the book The Twin Thieves? Have you ever heard of
No,
that? Yeah,
no.
it's actually a football story, but the Twin Thieves are fear of rejection and fear of failure. And so, a lot of times when we become, I shouldn't say a lot of times, there are times when we become head coaches or we get into new roles and we fear being judged or rejected, and so we portray what we think we're supposed to act or say or do in that role instead of being authentic to who we are as it relates to the strengths of that role that we're in. So I love that you chose the hey, I'm gonna be myself. If they don't like it, judgment. Well, sorry, that's who I am. And you know what? If I fail, fear of failure, well, we'll have to figure it out and I'll have to get better somehow. We'll get educated in how I failed
Yeah,
and so it doesn't happen again. So yeah, I like that. That's very
right,
good.
right.
So 2 years of at Assumption. Sorry, pause. So one of the things I talked about, I don't think we do as a body very well of our assistant coaches, helping them become better first-time head coaches. We also, as an administration, in general, don't do a very good job of when we promote someone to a head coach for the first time. There's things that you have to do as a head coach that you don't have to do or get to do as an assistant coach. And one of those things is staff evaluations, meaning hiring, firing, evaluations, things like that. You're not taught that at all. Almost like you're kind of not ever taught how to recruit either, by the way. We've talked about that in the
Hmm.
past where it's like, hey, go recruit. You're like, cool. I guess that means just be likable. I don't know. What does that actually
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Uh, so same thing as a head coach, you have to, at some point in your career, you're going to have an open position and you're going to have to figure out, well, what is it? What does hiring look like? Should I just go hire someone that I know and it's a friend of mine? Do I look for fit? What do I actually do here? So, did you have any, okay, Nick, you're the head coach or Nick calls and tells you you're the head coach. Did you have to do any of that in the 2 years that your assumptions hiring? Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
how'd that go?
Well,
And,
so
and and when I say how to go, I'm sorry, real quick. When I say how to go, I don't necessarily mean like, hey, did the person you hire do the things that you wanted them to do? More of like, okay, how do I put a like, do I go talk to HR? Who do I talk to? Okay, I got all these applications. How do I whittle them down? Like that's what I mean. How did the blocking
mm,
tackling part of it? How did that go?
yeah, so so many jobs do go up online. Like fortunately, like the head coaching job did not. Like Nick just offered me the job. Similarly, like I got so lucky with my assistant coaches at Assumption. One we had literally just hired, and he was my teammate at URI
Oh,
from Central Massachusetts. So
nice.
that one worked out great. Like we had a very similar thought process. So like it was so smooth, him and I. Like he was like my first assistant at that time. And then we were looking for a distance coach. I mean, like you said, like I do consider myself to be a track and field coach. Like I enjoy all the events. I feel like I have a decent understanding of them and all that. And so, but it was still like felt like I should play to my strengths, and my strengths were more like in the jumps, I would say. And so I continued coaching the jumps. I had my sprint hurdle coach. And then I was looking for a distance coach and a throws coach. And so distance coach ended up being a guy that was actually working in Assumption admissions for the first for in his first year. And he was a stellar distance runner himself at Providence College, also from the area. I lived down the street from his parents. It was just kind of like one of those situations. And so he did an amazing job. My sprints coach did an amazing job, like the whole time that they were there. And then the fourth coach is another person that you know, Lisa Wilson, who,
Oh, yeah.
yep, yeah. Um,
Absolutely.
so she had just come home from California where she was doing some coaching and some training,
Yeah.
and and she didn't like really have like a future in mind. So she was kind of doing some coaching at her local high school where she had attended. And so I call her out of the blue and like when I'm like I like cold it was essentially a cold call because someone had said, "Hey, she's in the area." I was like, "All right, I'll talk to her." It was the best like first conversation I've ever had with anybody. Like she is just so easy to talk to. And just I was like 5 minutes into the conversation, I was like, "So can you just like come and work with me? Like, can you just come and coach the throws? I can't pay you a ton, but I need you to be here. Like I desperately need you to be here." And so she was like, "Yeah, let's do it," because she didn't really know what she was going to be doing either. So yeah, that was our group of four, and we had a great
Wow.
time. After meets, we would go out afterwards as a group, and yeah, we were all young, obviously, and we had this responsibility of coaching like, however many kids, 70 kids or 80 kids or something like that. Actually, maybe it was more. But yeah, we just took it and ran with it,
That's
and
cool.
it was for those couple years, it was just an amazing experience. Um,
Well, definitely. I love Lisa Wilson. Well,
yeah,
and what's she's married now. I still call her Lisa Wilson.
Browning, yeah.
Browning, thank you very much for that. Because I know she's listening. I'm sorry, Lisa. I did not remember your married name. I apologize. Please tell him I said I'm sorry. Don't beat me up. Have you seen her husband?
He's a beast.
Bro, I mean,
Yeah,
jeez,
yeah.
Manetti, that guy. We were doing something together at Nike Outdoor National. And I was like, "Hey, Hulk, can you grab my boxes for me, please?" And he just picks them up. I'm like, "Thank you, buddy."
You got to call him Tay Tay.
Tay Tay, all right.
Yeah.
He's amazing. Love him. And Gill Podcast alum, by the way. So if you're interested in learning more about Lisa Wilson from MF Athletics, check whatever app you're using right now. Just type in her name and it'll pop up. Type in Lisa Wilson because she was Wilson back then. So,
Mhm.
but amazing story, and I love that you're part of her story and she's part of yours. All right. In the instance of time here, so 2 years at Assumption. Where do we go next, and why? You were the head coach. Why did we leave Assumption?
Yeah, so Rob calls me out of the blue and is like, "Hey Trent, I'm thinking about going to USM." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Like, I get it. Like your parents are up there." And the idea was to go and help them because, just from like, medical stuff happening up there, he's like, he just wanted to be closer.
Sure.
And so, yeah, he said he's thinking about it. And then at the end of the conversation, and my mind was just, I don't know, maybe I was distracted or something. And I was like, okay. And then at the end, he was like, "Well, what does that mean for you?" I was like, "What do you mean? What does it
What do
mean
you
for
mean?
me?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, would you want to coach at URI?" I was like, "Oh,
Oh, you didn't even like catch on that that's what he was really.
no, no, I wasn't thinking in those terms.
Sure,
Hey,
sure. Yeah.
Mike, like at Assumption, like things were going well. Like
Yeah,
we
yeah,
were
yeah, yeah.
moving up, like, things were going really, really well.
Right,
So,
right.
I was thinking I was going to be at Assumption for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm a loyalty guy, so like once I
Yeah.
start something, I'm probably gonna try to finish it.
Yeah.
Do as much as I can to finish that project or
Yeah.
task. And so, yeah, he calls me, we hang up, and I talk to my wife, and I'm like, and she's like, "You should do it. You should go back to URI." And she's from town. She was on the track team here. That's how we met. So she's from Kingston, Rhode Island, or she's from South Kingstown, Rhode Island, where URI is. And so this would be an opportunity for her to move closer to home too,
Yeah.
right? And so I think about it more and more. And then at some point, probably in the day after, I talked to Robin. I was like, "Actually, I think I might be interested." And he tells Cope. And so Cope gives me a call one day. He's like, "Trent, like we if you're interested, like we'd like to have you down here." And so again, like I get into this still have never written like a you know what I mean? I've never
Resume. Yeah, yeah,
applied. I've never truly applied to a place. I
yeah.
just kind of just keep moving on, right? And so luckily enough, like yeah, Cope was willing to have me on, so I basically just took over for Rob. And so
Wow.
first year was that, when COVID struck, we had just won the indoor championship,
Mm.
and then, right at the end, a week later, like the world shuts
The
down.
world shuts down. Yeah.
And then we kind of pick it back up sort of in 2020, fall of 2020.
Mhm.
We don't have an indoor championship, but then we win the outdoor championship. And so like things are going well here too. And then at the end of that outdoor championship, Cope, he brings the staff together. He's like, I'm retiring. I'm like, oh, wow. And so then again, like the wheels in my head just start spinning and spinning and spinning.
So,
And then
so before you get to that next step, I'm always curious. 'Cause I'm glad there was time between your undergrad and coming back, because, like, you talked about, you brought up a great point about when you went from assistant coach at Assumption to head coach, and because of your age and stage, you'd been working out with them. You're like, I kind of felt. I don't know if you necessarily you said I kind of felt more of an athlete, but you certainly said you felt like an athlete versus just the assistant coach. I think, and I'm pretty sure this is a definitive statement for me. I think that if to be a GA, that you should not be allowed to be a GA at the same school that you were
Hmm.
an undergrad. Because I just don't, I was a college kid. I don't see how on Friday you can be homeboys playing your Xbox and doing the things that we do as college kids because you're a teammate, and then on Monday your coach Baltzell, and there's a separation there, as between coach and athlete. I don't know how you go from being boys to being coach, but you used to kick it with them,
Yeah, no, I agree.
doing the things that
Yeah.
you now tell them not to do, right? So I love that you had that separation. But something that still happens here with you that we've seen in the past. I'm curious, and I know Cope wasn't necessarily, Rob was more of your coach, but Cope was the head coach. He still has influence, especially a guy like Cope has influence over the team. What's it like? What was it like going from athlete Trent with Coach Cope to, like, oh, I'm now I'm staff. We're not here necessarily because he's the head coach, but you're certainly not here coaching athlete. You're on the same staff. How was that going? That relationship change from Coach Cope, my coach, to, oh, Coach Cope, my I'm gonna say peer, but on the same staff, but my boss.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely obviously he's however much older than me, 50 years older than me or something like that. Like he but our relationship definitely changed. Like he saw what we did at Assumption. I think he respected me from like a success standpoint for sure.
Sure, yeah,
And he he was a hard ass coach. Like there was the stories, like the stories from the athletes and the alumni. Like you can still, anytime I get together with guys, my years or before, like there would always be the Cope stories
everybody's
about
got
the
a Cope
things he
story. Yep.
said, and so like that was kind of like my only knowledge of him until I became his assistant coach, and that's when things really changed. And like I just realized how nice of a man he was. And like I knew he didn't have kids. Like he had a wife and he lived close to campus, but like this thing was his life. Like realistically this whole thing was his life. So like we were all his kids, like when we were student athletes for him.
Right.
And so, when I became his assistant, like things definitely changed a lot. I just realized like he wasn't the exact guy that we knew him to be. Like when he's kind of like off camera, he's just the nicest man and just wants the best for everybody.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I realized about him. And he definitely had a way about him in the office. Like his old school mentality kind of stuck through. Like we were doing things like a lot differently at Assumption, and
Hmm.
it's good that I had kind of like the both, I could see things from like multiple
Absolutely.
ways.
Yeah.
And so yeah, Cope, certainly grateful he got us through COVID, because that was a struggle, like as
Yeah.
it was for probably every school across the country.
For sure.
Just like with all of our limitations and everything like that. So,
Yeah.
but he stuck it out, and forever grateful for everything he's done, just giving me the opportunity to come back, which at the time seemed like a parallel move, kind of, I'd say,
Yeah. Head
from
coach.
being a head
Yeah. Hmm.
coach to being an assistant again, but I was actually being paid a little bit more,
Hmm.
and um, there's less responsibility, but certainly more, an opportunity eventually to like move up.
Right. How you doing on time? We're near
I'm
the end of
good.
you're
Yeah,
okay.
good.
Um, so Cope, announces his retirement, which isn't, it's on one hand for a guy who coaches that long, when they actually announce their retirement. On one hand, it's not a surprise because it's like, well, we don't live forever, we don't work forever. But on the other hand, it's like, yeah, but I could have seen him retiring 10 years ago and he didn't, so I could see him going another year. So there's still a
Hmm.
little bit of a surprise when they actually
Hmm.
announce their retirement. Did you have uh, automatic thoughts of like, okay, I'm going to become the head coach, or I want to become the head coach? What was that process?
I wasn't sure. I was in it's part of me was like shit. Like I don't know if I've been doing this long enough. Like I don't
Right,
know if the experience. I don't know if they're gonna trust me.
right.
Like the administration. I'm not sure what Cope's even gonna say. Like if he's gonna give a recommendation or if they would consider a recommendation from him.
Right.
Um, I think Cope knew though that it was a safe bet that like things wouldn't change. Like or they wouldn't change drastically if I took over.
Hmm.
And I think that at the end of the day, that's how the administration felt too. Like things were going pretty well. We were winning. Like we didn't have like a lot of problems happening. Like our, team GPA was in a good place. Like things were generally like going well with our
Hmm.
program. Like we weren't the one that they were concerned about. That's for
Right.
sure.
Right.
But they did put me through the ringer. Like I had to do everything that everyone else had to do. And so,
Good.
for the other applicants, like in this again, this was my first time. Like I
Right.
had never had to go through this process. Like my very first job, Stacy was like, so, after a half hour, she's like, so when can you start? And I was like, all right. And so in this time, I'm like, I had to, do everything. And that process was actually pretty stressful because I just felt like the expectation was that I was like this perfect candidate and like I just didn't know how to be like a perfect candidate in throughout that process. So it was tough. Yeah.
Do you I appreciate that. That makes a lot of sense because you're right on paper, alum, has had coaching experience, has had success,
Yeah.
and oh,
Yeah.
by the way, is in the program now as an assistant coach. So if you're happy with the program, you have to give that guy some credit for that. He's a part of that. He's part of the GPA and the minimal bad things happening. What
Yeah,
would be
yeah.
that
Yeah.
word? There's a word there. I'm so stupid. Um, so things like so yeah, you're right. On paper, it's like, oh, it's the perfect candidate. It's a slam dunk, but it's like, oh, well, perfect. The perfect is unattainable. How in the world do I convey these things, that I want to convey, be my authentic self during the process? Did you? It's again, it's always interesting. You have these, Cope is a the wrong word here, outstretched figure. What I mean by that is, his fingerprint. You talk about putting a
Mhm.
fingerprint on a program. He doesn't have his fingerprint on the program. He has his whole palm. I mean, his DNA. He's been there for so long. He built the program
Mhm.
and had success. So it's not like you can say, "Oh, I'm going to do everything 180 from what Cope did because we're going to go from eighth place to first place." It's like, well, you're already in first place. You're winning championships. How much did you? uh, when we interviewing is very interesting to me. I've interviewed hundreds of people throughout my 20 years here at Gill. And I've studied interviewing. Yeah, when we interview, whether it's for a coaching job or a sector job like ours, it's this game. It's this play that you're putting on. As the interviewer, the administration in your case, there's a little bit of like, well, we want to, and it's a little different because everything. You're there, so you know all the warts and all, if you will. But when a new candidate comes in, it's like, well, we want to portray that we're a great institution and that you would be lucky to work here, kind of thing, right? So you play in your part when hey, it's not perfect here. No one's perfect. The candidate, in this case, even you, even though you were there, you're thinking like, well, what do they want? So I better be that. I better portray that. So it's like this weird, like we actually most times don't actually be ourselves, both interviewer and interviewee, during the process because we're playing, and then we get the job, and you can't fake the funk for too long. You end up being who you are, and then people are like, well, wait a minute, this is the person who interviews. Like, what the heck, right? And so where I'm getting at here with you, Trent, is how much did you during the interview process? You got a lot of the pressures that you mentioned about, the perfect candidate and all this kind of stuff. How much of it was like, okay, there's things Cope did that I respect, but that would not be how I would do. I'm going to do it differently. But gosh, it's hard to tell the administration that I'm going to do a lot of things differently because things were going really well. What are you going to do? You're going to tell them you're going to win the NCAAs? No offense, but there's only probably about 5 schools in this country that are going to win NCAAs, and it's only getting worse the way it's being set up. So, uh, how did you balance that? I want to put my fingerprint on it, but boy, the fingerprint we have right now is pretty good. I get it, guys. How did you handle that? Does that make sense? I might have like really
No, no,
awkwardly asked that question.
I do understand what you're saying. I honestly like my initial reaction, when they were asking these questions was just to say like things are going well. Like I want to not make a lot of changes, but then they'd come back and be like, well, like why are things going well? Because of the way you were doing it before, and so it was just hard for me to like. I just felt like I had to be someone else during the recruiting process, and they all knew who I was already. Like I had been around here as a student athlete for
Oh,
five
right.
years,
Yeah, right.
and then I had been assistant coaching for 2 years. I've been a part of the program for 7 years already, so it's like they're asking me questions that they already know the answer to. So it was like I didn't enjoy the
Yeah,
process.
I can see that. That's where I'm kind of getting at. Like, I could see someone listening right now going, "Oh, how lucky is Trent? What a slam dunk! He could have just walked in, gave everybody coffees, and said, 'Well, what are we going to do on Monday, boys? Because I know I'm getting the job.' And what a lucky!" And it's like, no, this is actually there's complexity to this.
Yeah, and it was my first time ever going through it, so like
Yeah,
I don't know. It just felt awkward. Like almost every part of it felt really, really awkward.
I can
Like I
feel
was
that
literally like the first they'll do like the first round and like they'll chop it down to like however many three to bring back on campus. And even the first one I was doing like a Zoom interview and I'm like
because
why
they're
can't
all Zoom. You want to keep
why
them the
can't I
same.
talk to you? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like I'm like 3 doors down. Like it just felt like so
You hang up the Zoom and then go down the hall because you need to
yeah.
talk to them about some
Yeah.
paperwork you got to do. Yeah, yeah, I completely get it, man. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to make sure people understand like this was actually a stressful
Very,
ordeal
yeah, very stressful.
and not just a slam dunk. They were already changing the nameplate. This is awkward's a good word. This is
Yep.
difficult to navigate. I can see this
Yep.
absolutely. So you go through first round, go through second round, and well, and spoiler alert, they offer you the job,
Yeah,
and
second round is better. To be honest, like I got used to like the questions that they were answering me, and I did some more studying. I was more prepared for like round two, and I honestly like I did so poorly in round one that I'm like, oh my God, I just like did something bad just happen? Did I
just
just
blow it.
ruin my entire, am I gonna even be here because as a new head coach even gonna keep me on? Like I have no idea, you know?
Here's the good news. They were interviewing you to be a head track coach, not to be a professional interviewer. So
Yeah, yeah,
you probably have a pretty good administration there. I'm kind of getting the sense. So there's a little bit of grace of like, okay, guys, think about him too. They had to have these same thoughts. Like, hey, here's this guy. Copeland's been around forever, guys. But we want to give autonomy to our head coach too. That hey, we want you to. It's almost like what Nick said. Hey, it's your program, but we also know we have something good too. So like, I don't think they would have been happy with someone that would have came in and said, "I'm gonna throw it all out." Like, ooh,
right, right,
we got a good thing here, guy. We need enhancement, not
yeah.
complete redo. So, yeah, I could see that being very stressful. Absolutely. So what was it like when they finally like how did they do it? Did they did they call you? Did they call you to the office? Did they walk into your office? How did they actually say, "Hey, man, we'd like to."
Mike, I don't remember. I don't even remember how I found out that I officially got the job.
Yeah, yeah.
I think Thor, yeah, our AD Thor, he was an awesome guy
Oh,
too.
I'm
He's
sorry.
he's been
Hold
here
up.
for so long.
Did you
I know.
just say
Mike, we would have named one of our kids Thor. I'm telling you.
that is
Yes.
amazing?
Yes.
Oh my God. I was like, wait a minute,
Thor
you did not
Thor
just throw
Bjorn
that
is
in
his
there.
name. Yeah.
Dude, y'all got it going on with the names up there, man.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Love that. Shout out to Thor.
Yeah.
I thought what before had met my wife and everything, and I was thinking about kids. I was like, I think I was joking. Obviously, I was joking because I didn't do this, but I said I would name my kid Thor, and people would ask like, why? And I was like, no one beats up a kid named Thor. Like
Right.
even if he's like a little bit wimpy, it's kind of like, well, the dude's name is Thor. Let's maybe not mess with him. So I've always kind of liked the name Thor, so that's pretty cool. Okay, somehow magically you become the head coach. You don't even know they don't even tell you. You just assume the role and you keep going. How's that been, man? It's you cared a lot about assumption, no doubt. You care more about your alma mater.
Hmm.
At least hopefully you do. You look at a kid that's on your team and you're like, dude, that was me. 10 years
Hmm.
ago, little Joey there was little Trent, scared, not knowing where to go to class, not knowing what's going to happen because I got injured and where he's going to go home and who knows what's going to happen. How's it been being the head coach of your alma mater so far?
I mean, dream come true.
That's
Like
awesome.
to be honest, it just is. Um, at what point was I like hoping that this would happen? Like to be honest, like I thought what would happen was Cope would retire, Rob would become the
Right.
head coach, and then I would be at Assumption for 10 or 12 years. Then the women's staff would retire, and then I would go for that job.
Oh,
That's what
yeah.
I thought would always
You
happen.
couldn't even conceive Rob leaving. Like you didn't
No,
even because I thought you were gonna
no.
say, well, then Rob would leave and I'd take his job. You weren't even conceiving that.
Right. No, that really was I didn't think that yeah, this happened way faster than I could have ever
Sure.
imagined.
Sure.
And so I'm just super grateful and appreciative for
That's
all the
awesome.
people that have like helped me get to this point. And I feel like at the end of the day, like I did earn it though.
Yeah, evident.
I was an alumni. It helps. Like all this stuff helps. Like just, my relationship with the people around here helps. But I felt like and I hope that they felt like they were getting someone that was gonna continue the legacy of the program,
Right.
And Cope had set it up so well. Like it was, I'm not gonna say it was like a slam dunk because, although logistically we've kept things relatively the same practice time, same basic meet schedule, like, we do a lot of the same types of trips and stuff like
Mhm.
that. From a programming perspective, we've brought more of like a modern style. We've obviously as younger coaches, we're more relatable. And so like the program has taken off like in the last 4 years. Just that, I mean, trackflation is a thing. Like we all know
Mhm.
that. Just the level of track is
Amazing.
getting better, but I think we're still ahead of that curve even. And
Mhm.
uh, and so yeah, things have just gone very well. I mean, we've won. This is year five for me as a head coach, and we've won 7 of 8 conference titles since I've been here with my new staff.
Bro, and you're in a good conference. This ain't like you went in the East Coast half state championships here.
Yeah.
The A10, brother. That's some good teams, some good coaches there.
Yeah, there's definitely some tough competition. But we have good resources here, as good or better than most of the schools in our conference. So, from a track and field perspective, like we should be contending,
Yeah.
on a year-to-year basis. And then even in cross country, like it's not an unwinnable conference, although it's a much harder thing to do,
Right.
when you're trying to split kind of cross and track.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times I'll ask the question about what are you doing for coaching education? Uh, basically the question is, what are you doing to improve as a coach? I want to ask you a little bit different. Uh, what are you doing to become a better head coach? When you think about, your 5 years in at Rhode Island, a couple of years at Assumption, people, whether you want to be or not to be, you are a leader. You're the head coach of the program. So you have assistant coaches that look to you. You have athletes that look to you. You have administration that looks to you. What are you doing for professional development? How do you become not a better jumps coach? How do you become a better head coach of a program?
I think for the head coach, uh, it has to be someone that is like detail oriented. I think you have to do all the behind the scenes work that like nobody's really checking up on. But if you do miss something, it's like that could come back to bite you. And there's been plenty of situations in the past. I'm sure this happens to everybody where like an email gets missed or you're just late to get a project done or something like that. And like there actually is like a negative effect to that. Like someone misses something and honestly at the end of the day that's just points on paper. It just ends up being points, so it's all calculated. So I've just really tried to make it a point to like button everything up, and just be more organized as a coach. I think the first couple things I did was like just make sure the staff was in good order. And so I needed an assistant coach, and I got someone that was highly recommended by many coaches in this area. His name is Brian Doyle. and he coaches from like the long line of Doyles in Rhode Island.
I was wondering, yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
his dad was Bobby Doyle, who is the very famous distance runner in the state for like, the best long distance runner for literally decades. And he was another PC guy, Brian was. And so he got some coaching down with Rennie Waldron, who
Mhm.
you might know of.
Yep.
When he was at Davidson. Rennie was Brian's coach when Brian was at Northeastern when he started school. So there was
Wow.
a big connection there.
Mhm.
Brian started doing sprints coaching, even though he was a distance guy for Rennie. And so Brian came here with a background as a distance runner, but also with a coaching background in sprints. And Cope used to coach sprints all the way through distance. So there's very few
Is
people
that
that
right?
yeah, there's very few people that kind of cover that full gap.
Wow.
And Brian was like kind of the perfect candidate and wanted to
Yeah.
come back to Rhode Island.
Huh.
So it was just a no-brainer. It was like I interviewed one person and I was like, there's no possible way anybody else could be better than this.
Are you a reader, a podcast listener, a video, any leadership stuff that you learned from, organizational? Just trying to think like sometimes for the podcast, not sometimes, there's kind of two goals. I probably should have told you this before we hit record. One, we talked about, it's uplift and honor what you've done. We're doing that. This is an amazing career. It's great to show people the different avenues that you can take to become where you are today. The other is, we do have lots and lots of listeners. We have coaches who it's their first day coaching. We have coaches like Cope that it's their 50th year coaching that listen. And so I like to extract value out of the person to kind of take advantage of the situation if I can. So always trying to figure out like book recommendations, podcasts, or anything like that.
Oh man.
No,
Uh
no, no is okay, by the way. That's all right.
yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
I don't think so. I mean, honestly, I've just tried to, and I said this earlier in the podcast, just stay true to myself. And honestly, as the years have gone on, like the way I relate to athletes has just changed. Like
Mm.
I'm not their age anymore. So like it's like the respect level just happens, it happens a little more naturally, I'd
Yeah.
say, like as the years go on. Like I think people are less inclined to call me Trent or Coach Trent and more like wanting to call me Coach B or
Right.
Coach Baltzell or something.
Right.
And like I've never asked anything from anybody in those ways, but as I get older, it's just kind of getting almost like easier. So
Right.
I haven't tried to like push myself in any certain way or push
Mhm.
others in any certain way. Um, and I just yeah, just like just the way I am, like genuinely and honestly, I think has worked out really well for me. So
So talk us through. We touched on this, hinted at this earlier. Uh, it used to be. I don't know if it was. I don't know if it was always like back in the day. Was it always split programs? But I certainly know there were a lot more back in the day, and it seems like the trend is going towards combination. You guys still have a men's staff and a women's staff. I used to be so I used to coach at Ball State University back in the day, and we were split staff. So my head coach was Sue Parks. Jim Sprecher was on the men's head coach. Both those guys, by the way, Sue Parks and Sprecher, Gill podcast alums. So if you want to learn more about them, find their episodes here. Um, and I know how we operated, but I've heard of others like I don't know if I should say that, but I know of others that cross coach. How do you guys do it at Rhode Island? Does the women staff coach all the women and no mixed? The sprint coach on the women's side isn't coaching the men's sprinters, or do you commingle totally separate? How does it work there at Rhode Island?
we've always been friendly. Like I think the women's program began in like the 70s, like late 70s.
Oh,
And
that
we've
that that's a
always
that's actually an old women's program. You know
yeah,
what I mean by that? Like that. That's
yeah.
awesome. They were kind of a forerunners then. That's good.
Yeah, our men's programs actually began in like it had to be like 1905 or 1906. It's
Wow.
been well over 100 years.
Holy.
So it took a while, but yeah, the women's program is now like 50, close to 50 years old, I would say. And we've always been friendly. Like there's plenty of mingling going on. Like my wife was on the team, and
Right.
that's not like unique or anything like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Right.
So we practice at the same time, because that's when we have the field house to ourselves, and
Right.
it's recreation runs our field house. It's not a varsity
Yep.
facility,
Hmm.
so we kind of have to go by their,
Yeah. You rent time and all that
yeah,
kind of stuff. Yeah.
basically,
Hmm. Yep. That's not
yeah.
unusual.
Yeah, yeah. And so But outside of that, yeah, they have their own coaching staff. For the first time, we do have a coach, and she coaches the pole vault. And as a jumps coach, like I do enjoy coaching all the events. But if there's one event that like I can give up to somebody else because it takes just an incredible amount of time out of your day, it's the pole
Yeah,
vault.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so
When you
case
said when
starts.
you said you had a combo, I was like, I bet it's a pole vault. It just makes
Yeah,
sense. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So how do you um do you guys, if you travel to the same meets, how do you coordinate that? Like, does Trent do the travel and she does the hotel? And by the way, we're going to have her on the podcast as well, so we'll learn her side of it. So you're going to get a fact check. She's gonna tell
Yeah,
me if you're right or
yeah.
wrong, you know. So how do you split up responsibilities? How do you make a decision? She wants to go to this meet, and you're like, yeah, I don't really want to go to this meet. Things like that. How do you cohabitate? Because while you're separate program, I shouldn't have done air quotes there because it is two different sports. It is six different sports.
Hmm.
How do you guys coordinate?
We do go our separate ways, like with meet coordination.
Okay.
If we are going to the same meet, like we will try to save money and make it easier by kind of sharing rides in certain cases,
Hmm.
if it makes sense. Like we'll take a bus and we'll take a few vans and sometimes some of the girls are on our, and this is new too. This is only within like the last couple years.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we're getting closer and closer
Hmm.
to combining, I would say,
Hmm.
but like there's no guarantees. I mean, Lori and her husband John have been running that women's program since like the early 90s.
Okay,
So
okay, okay.
and Cope had been here since the early 80s, and like they had never kind of gotten together to do
Yeah.
these things. And so but now we're kind of getting closer, and I think administration is certainly considering combining programs like at some point.
I've seen all kinds, and no one is right and no one is wrong here. So I've seen, you know, separate programs that, the guy who's officially the men's assistant coach but also coaches all sprinters, women and men. And I've seen completely separate. I've seen adversarial as well.
Hmm.
That's probably not right. But I've seen
Well,
all types, right?
yeah.
But it is interesting to me. One part that I don't like having the experience of it is you're limited. Well, at least back then, and things have changed. You're limited to three coaches, so it's a little hard to span all the events with that. And with the combined, you have six, and so it's a little easier to chop up
Hmm.
your events.
Hmm.
Um, but but we we as track coaches and we as athletics do a terrible job of separating our sports. We are track and field, which means we're men's cross country, women's cross country, men's indoor, women's outdoor. We forget that we are six sports, and no, I don't think the majority of, I'm sure there's somebody who does this, but in the majority, I don't think like uh Rhode Island. Do you have tennis and golf at Rhode
We have
Island?
women's tennis and men's golf. Yeah,
You have women's tennis, but not men's tennis?
correct.
And you have men's golf, but not women's golf.
Yeah,
You guys are weird. I love it. Uh, Other schools will have men's and women's tennis or men's and
yeah,
women's golf. And the majority of them have a men's tennis head coach and a women's tennis head coach and a men's, but in track, oh
right.
no, boy, it's very common. You're the head coach of all six. So I do kind of like this separate program to give like, hey, you're responsible for the women's program and you're responsible for the men's, and those are separate sports. We don't
Hmm.
we don't say, hey, track is doing real well when the men win and the women get eighth. We say, hey, we got a problem over here on this side. I'm not,
Hmm.
and by the way, I'm not saying that's what I actually don't know. I don't look up results. I don't care because I care about you as a person, not as your results. But I'm saying, we can put attention to those sports and actually have accountability. So I kind of like the idea of separate. I just wish we had more coaches then. I'd love for you to have six coaches on the men's side and her to have six
Great.
coaches,
Yeah.
yeah, on the women's side as well there. So one of the things that we want to celebrate, we believe healthy things grow. And right now, and if you're watching, you probably have seen Trent do this a couple times. He's looking over his shoulder, over his left shoulder. He's got a nice window, I can tell there, and he's looking out into a new track and field facility that's going on there. So, talk to us about that. And one of the like sub questions there. So, I've done many, 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 many facilities, right? From Oregon to Muhammad High School, right? It's a lot of stuff. there's a lot of questions that have to be answered and solutions. How do you guys how are you guys coordinating with that? She's got her ideas, you got your ideas, and you're not going to have a men's track facility and a women's track facility. We know that. How is it going with the new facility? Because that's exciting, but also a ton of work and very nerve-wracking, a lot of stress as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it was 2021 when Thor, our AD, was kind of looking into a project like this, and so he had hired a firm, CHA,
Oh yeah. Hmm.
to help us out. And so they actually gave us a questionnaire, they gave coaching staff a questionnaire. Cope wanted nothing to do with it. He was at that point, he was probably like, you know what, like this is not for me. So I worked on it with the women's coaches. It was just this big questionnaire, kind of covered all facets of a new facility. And we handed it in, and then we got some basic quotes, and it ended up coming in like so expensive, like we couldn't possibly ever fundraise
Right.
for that type of facility. So, but it was like a wish list, it was
Mhm.
like a true wish list. It was like everything that we would hope to want for a new outdoor facility, which we had a new one in 1977 or something like that, and it was never maintained. So it was the last meet we had there was like 93 or something like that.
Oh,
So
you weren't even hosting meets.
it's been condemned since like the mid 90s. Like literally, like we weren't even allowed to be on it. It was just in such rugged shape.
Wow.
So anyways, this has been in talks forever, obviously. Like new track, new track, new track, but it's all just money. Like how much is this thing going to cost? And then when we get when we get the quotes, it just gets shut down. So when I first became the head coach, we had a new president that came in, President Mark Parlange, and he was a big advocate of athletics and especially running, because he's just a distance guy. Like he'll go out 10-mile runs. He's like in his 60s, or he might be 70 now, and his wife, and they're runners.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
big fans. Like they would come out cross country preseason. I'd run with them, and it was a great time.
Cool.
And so 2 years later, it just I think he's taken it to heart that we don't have like a facility, and he goes to the state house and lobbies for a huge grant, athletics grant. And he secures like $65 million. This was 2 summers ago when this happened.
Wow.
And so it's paid for by, the taxpayers of the state. And so we hadn't really needed to fundraise for it either. So
Yeah.
actually what they did was they just took our questionnaire and they just forwarded it 2 years forward. And then we used the exact same design that we had developed. And so yeah, the coaches designed this whole facility, the
That's
whole track and
awesome.
everything. Yeah. So we have our handprint all over this thing.
Holy cow. That's
Very
a,
lucky.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's maybe best case scenario.
Yeah.
One of my roles here is new facility development. And so it's not, I mean, not only is it not uncommon, it is very common in 2025. Hey, we're getting a new track. And the reality is, at least for our side, the equipment side, 2030 is when we'll actually, I worked
Yep.
on Virginia Beach and
Hmm.
Louisville and Spokane for years before an actual PO was put in. So that's not uncommon because money is the issue, right? And land is expensive.
Hmm.
It's kind of funny, in the world we live in here, the equipment is actually this much of the entire project.
Yeah.
All the other dirt moving and the track itself, and all the stuff that goes with it. That's way more expensive. So it's money. Money is always the issue. That's exactly right. So to have a president, what a great example of having an administration and all the way up to the president support. You got to have their support, or boy, life gets super hard.
This
So
could not have possibly happened without
absolutely.
the president doing this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. So that's awesome, man. I love that. That is so cool. So how, as we start to wrap up here, what, as you look towards the future, the 2026 season is right here in front of you. You got construction over your left shoulder. So you get to define what the future looks like. Is it 5 years, 10 years down the road? What's got you excited there at Rhode Island?
Well, I think this is actually going to be like the most functional facility in New England, like barring none, honestly. And from even from a spectator's point of view, like we're not going to have grandstands and lights, at least not in like this
Right.
initial phase, but like we'll have seating for 1,000, and honestly like everything is so close together. You can go on our Instagram page, and I've kind of posted some updates on how things are going, and I've posted the plans for the track, and you can see for yourself how this thing is designed,
It's
and
cool.
you
Again, as
can
a guy who's
stand
done a lot of facilities, I do
yeah.
like how you guys designed it. Yeah.
You can stand in one place, like the south bend of the track, and you can watch the throwing events. You can watch
Right.
the high jumpers. Obviously, you can watch the kids running around the track. You can watch, if we have a north to south wind, you can watch the pole vault and the long jump and triple jump all coming your way. Like
Right.
it's going to be just one of those facilities that gives you a lot of options too. We have basically two of everything.
Hmm.
Um, we've got two discus circle. The only thing we have one of is the hammer, and that's typical.
Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
But yeah, multiple shot with circles, multiple jump pits going each way, pole vault pits going, four boxes, two going
Yeah.
each way.
And you're doing
Uh,
a separate discus cage. So,
yep,
to your
yep.
point, a lot of times it's one hammer cage, which also serves as your discus cage. So you're actually got two long throw-in circles there. So it's cool. I do like your design. Again, I've been involved in Oregon's design and, uh, Baylor's and many in between. I do. It's a little. There's some uniqueness there. It actually, I like how you said that. It actually has. I can see a coach's eyesight into it, not just a designer. Because I've seen some designer only that they think they know. Oh, it's 400 meters and I can do this. And
Mm,
you get 35-inch lanes and things like that. Or 6 lanes, and it's like, bro, you have
yeah.
no clue what's going on here. So I do love the input, and I really dearly. This is something very passionate of mine. Very much in love that they asked you guys your opinion. When it comes to new facilities, this is the common way. All the design work and in-ground stuff, so cages, vault boxes, stuff like that, sand pits, uh, gets done by a facility AD and architects, and they never ask the coach anything. They'll come to the coach when it's time for the fun stuff, the hurdles and pits and things like that. And they never ask the guys and gals who are actually going to be standing on that track working every single day, hey, is it important which way the pole vault goes? Because a
Hmm.
designer will be like, I got room here, put the pole vault here. It's like, bro, you have no idea what our winds are. Like that's
Hmm.
important for where
Hmm.
you place your pole vault pit. So I do like that I can actually see a coach's input into that facility. I think it's going to be amazing. So you guys will be back to host. You won't have it done this year. You're going to be back to hosting meets though in 27.
Yeah, we'll host meets in 27. Yep.
That's
Yep.
so cool. Will this be? I know you said about 1,000 grandstand, and I don't know what the current. I should because I interviewed a Rhode Island coach. Will this be a potential state meet host site or?
Oh my God, we're gonna do as much as we can because
Mhm.
like we don't, the Mackle Fieldhouse is a rec facility. This is gonna be a varsity facility, so we'll be able to control kind of like what's coming in. And we're absolutely looking forward to hosting high school invites and state championships and high school New England championships and obviously all the college championships that we can as well and invites. So and yeah, like I said, it's functional. So it's nine 48-inch wide lanes. It's an
Right.
Olympic sized track.
Yep.
It's got two of everything. It's got four runouts, in each corner of the track. So you can run any way you want to run, when dependent. So yeah, we tried to think of everything. I'm sure we'll still get something, one or a couple things wrong,
100%.
but for the most part, I think this track will be able to do just about anything we want it to do.
There is no perfect track. Again, I use Oregon as an example because 270 something $1 million facility and it's Oregon, all that kind of stuff, right? And it's beautiful and it's the best track stadium in the world, in my opinion.
Mm.
I'm also very biased, but whatever. I guess as you can see over my shoulder
We're
here.
American, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But even then, when they got it done, I remember walking with one of their administrators, and I was like, "Hey, so it's all done." And I can't. I think I was there for their very first meet, so they hadn't even had a meet yet. And I was like, "Would you have done anything different? Now that it's built?" And they're like, "Yeah, we didn't take into this consider." Now, there's some things that are very Oregon-esque. One of the things was like a row for photographers. I wish you had to consider yourself about that trend at URI, but that is something Oregon. But it really helped me see like there is no perfect facility. There is a great facility and one that will be much better than what you have today, and it'll serve you well. But perfection, you're right. You're going to get on there and be like, oh man, you know what we should have done? this thing over here. We're cool. Life is still going to go on. We're still going to get great recruits and great athletes and host great meets and all this kind of stuff, great practice time. But boy, if I could have done that differently now or whatever, little things like that. But your upgrade to your facilities there is 1,000%. I mean, it's going to be amazing for you guys and for your athletes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're over the moon about it. And like I said, this was like our wish list. This is like our dream track. Like we
Right.
didn't have to make any adjustments off of that
Right.
because now all of a sudden we had the money to create this thing. So, these guys have been working. This is week 11
Mm,
and they're going to be laying the asphalt layer soon
mhm.
and so they'll take a couple months off during the winter time, but they'll be back at it
Yeah,
and
that's
we should
right.
have this thing ready by the summertime. So I'm looking forward to all the Gill in-ground stuff going in for the
Yeah,
throws area, and yeah,
yeah.
we're very excited about that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that very much. Great partners with Lisa and MF Athletics, and
Mm.
our my job is not to be a podcast host; it's to serve coaches like you with equipment, and so we're pumped, man. Our ego is not based on who's on the gate board. Our ego is based on are we serving a coach. So whether it's Rhode Island High School or University of Rhode Island, man, we're pumped, and we couldn't be more excited for you guys. Healthy things grow, so things are very healthy at the University of Rhode Island track and field. That's for sure.
Yeah, going well right now. Like I just honestly like yeah, for those who like might get into coaching eventually, like this job is very rewarding. I mean, are we ever going to be rich? Like no, but you can make a lot of difference and honestly, like I don't feel like I'm really working when I'm when I'm coming to work, and
Right.
I know that's just one of those things that like a lot of adults say. It's just like you get into real adulting, and it's not as fun as you might think it is. But I'm having fun.
I love it. I love it, man. Well, I am super happy for you, man. Happy for all you guys. Well, like I said, we'll have the women's staff on next. Hopefully, it's actually next week. If I schedule that correctly. But man, Trent, it has been a blast, dude. I haven't done a 2 hour plus banger in a while, and felt like there's still a lot of questions I have, man. But super pumped to learn more about you. Really excited. I love your career path, man. It's super interesting. Little I can't even say traditional anymore because I've just learned so many different paths, but it is unique. You would think after 300 and something interviews that you can't surprise me anymore. But I love going to Martha's Vineyard and almost like there was a little bit of that crack of like,
Hmm.
ooh, coaching. We might not have Coach B here.
Hmm.
We might have restaurant owner Trent
Hmm.
Baltzell there. So I love that the sport and the profession pulled you back in though. Like there was that gravity force, if you will, that pulled you back in because I think many kids are better off for it. You've had a positive impact on a lot of young people, and I think that's extremely important. And I think other coaches, you've given people jobs and things like that. You're part of helping people, the construction people. They need jobs. We have to have construction for them to have jobs. And so Rhode Island and you and the women's staff are part of that. And I think that's really cool, man. So I've had an absolute blast today. I'm really grateful for you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike. Honestly, like it's been a real pleasure. I didn't know how this whole podcasting thing was go. Like this is my first time doing something like this, but
You did
yeah, it's
great,
been like two
bro.
and a half hours and
Yeah.
it's just gone by real fast. So I appreciate everything.
I appreciate you, man. Well, thank you. I'll let you go. I know you got to get lunch. I got to get lunch. We got got a real job to go to. So, appreciate you being here. Again, time is the most important and most valuable thing you can give me. So I'm really grateful for your time as you're getting ready to go into season here. Guys and gals for listening. Thank you so much, man. I guess this would still happen if none of you are around, but it's a lot more fun knowing you guys are around and learning about guys like Trent and their journey in this great profession. So thanks for being here. Join us next week. We'll do it all over again. Thanks, guys.